Welcome, friends. Let us together rebuild this world so that we may live, laugh, and lore.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
I'm not listening.
Oh, that took.
Program loaded and ready.
Make it so.
Welcome to the Live, Laugh, Lore podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Tony.
And I'm Mark, and here we are, Tony, episode 25.
25. Almost at that year mark, 26?
Almost.
26.
But interval of 5, which means it's another guest episode.
A special guest has arrived.
Yes, and who might that be, you ask? Well, it's my good friend, Gabe.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Welcome, Gabe, to the humble
Yes.
the humble abode of the Live, Laugh, Lore pod.
Thank you, Tony. Glad to be here. We'll see how much I have to add. I can dabble my toe in quite a few things of the nerd venture.
The nerdom, just as a whole, the ecosystem,
Yes.
Apex Predator,
Exactly.
the Gabatorus Rex. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're T-Rex is Apex. Yeah, it's not a big deal. But,
Yeah, well.
yeah. We're not archaeological lore, you know. Yuck. Real lore and Earth? No way, dude.
Yes. So it's going to be another Star Wars episode.
Yep.
Gabe and I have spent a lot of time discussing Star Wars and Star Wars theories, so it seemed like a natural fit. But Gabe, you want to give our listeners a little bit of a
What was your Star Wars journey?
yeah,
What
Star Wars
was it
journey.
like?
Yeah, exactly. Your knowledge base, kind of.
So, started with the original trilogy, of course, because I am 32 years old, so there was no others at that point. And I didn't originally get into the Legends stuff until after, essentially, the sequel trilogy came out, and I found out...
Sequel. Whoa, that's late blooming. Because for a
Yeah.
second I thought you meant prequel, and I was
No.
like, oh, I was right around the same time. Prequel, but
Because then I started reading all the Legends books. I was losing a lot of weight, and I was using it as a thing to read.
okay.
And I had a friend who in college had told me at one point, he's like, you should get to these at some point, because they are so crazy
Yeah.
and can get so unhinged, while also some of them are just the best solid sci-fi in a built world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny. I think there's actually a really big surge, and it's interesting that you say like that was kind of like the motivation, because a lot of other people's motivation, like they've never heard of the EU until the backlash happened because of the prequels.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hey, by the way, we're cutting all this, and everyone's like, wait, what are you cutting? And then I think a lot of the Star Wars theory, YouTube and Lorecast, they're kind of going in. They're kind of evaluating some of these movies, and they're like, by the way, this choice that they made, like Exogol, this is what it's from. And then they were like, all of a sudden, it almost built up the EU in a weird way. It was, you know what I mean? It
They're
almost
clearly taking plenty. They're utilizing it as they should, since
Yeah.
it's there. And, frankly, I was one of the people that gave some backlash on the idea that, you have loads to work from.
Mm-hmm.
However,
yeah.
there's a lot of chuff that sits out there that,
Yeah,
that
like
isn't
Star Killer.
necessary.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I just saw the other thing. They're like, it was a bunch of memes. I don't know why this is going around, or maybe my algorithm's so late. But it was like Star Killer, like, man, why isn't this lore? And like, here he goes killing Darth Vader and like
Yeah.
Luke and Chewbacca.
Yeah,
and it's
right.
like, yeah, of course it can't be lore. Like, what do
because
you
it's
mean?
the main characters,
Or
right?
when I say lore, I mean canon. But yeah,
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Mark? What was your kind of canon? I already kind of talked about mine in a previous episode. Mine was just prequels, and I was like, well, there's kind of a lot going on here. I don't quite understand. How do I fill these gaps? And then I kind of looked at the EU a lot. Mm-hmm. And then I was one of those people when the prequels came out, and I was like, no, I want to know what was stripped away from me. And I like went way deep and started checking out that stuff. So, Mark, what was your kind of venture into it?
Yeah, so obviously I've seen, I think, everything of canon except Acolyte, and I haven't watched Skeleton Crew yet. But as far,
brand new.
Yeah, but as far as Legends is concerned, the only book I've really read is the Plagueis book that you gave me.
Oh,
that
dude, I was insistent
that
on
we
you
dipped
doing
into
that.
on our very first episode. Whoa, what a callback!
Yeah,
you know?
I know. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that's the only actual physical book of the Legends I've read. But I've spent a lot of time squirreling and
Wikipedia. Oh,
wasting
man.
a lot of doom,
digging deep.
yeah,
Yeah,
doom
my
scrolling
man,
before
yeah.
bed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I know a lot.
Yeah, of course. And it's like, it's funny too, the EU has all these different mediums in which you can experience it. Mm-hmm. So they could be the lore casts on YouTube, they could be the physical books. I got into a huge, big physical book phase because I was kind of, sometimes people would say things and I'm like, you're kind of taking a little bit of a liberty with that. And then I would like just go to the source material, and then I just got like totally obsessed. So actually, in my notes when I was prepping for this, I was like, what were all the things in the EU have I read? And my list got pretty big pretty quick. I was actually kind of shocked.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you, Gabe? Did you read a lot in this?
So I read quite a few, and in town here, there's a place called the Dollar Book Swap, and I started that way. I found some different things, like, oh, I can read these.
Yep.
See what they are, and then much of the time it would end up with me going, well, wait a minute, this is the second, so I've got to buy the first, so you buy the first.
Oh, classic.
And oddly enough, a lot of the ones that end up there are not the necessarily critically acclaimed, but the weird ones.
Yeah, I love those the best.
Or the stuff that's mid-journey of, so I've read almost all of the X-Wing Squadron from the original Wedge and Tilly stuff, and those I think are terrific as a way of, it builds your universe, it gives you your battle stuff, and I am thankful that it's something that kind of steps away. And my personal take here currently is that we keep focusing so much on Jedis and lightsabers, and it's cool, and it's like, it's cool, but I've told Mark this before, that Andor really started getting the way I'd like to see us move is, give me some space politics. Give me some, what world are we living in that in this galaxy we have people going to prison just because they literally stepped out of line in a wrong direction, and now you're here for the rest of your life.
And they're force working, and
right.
What are they building? It seems to be like a lot of power couplings.
Right.
What could those be used for? A space laser that destroys multiple planets? Like, I 1000% agree with you. And I also got to a point where I'm kind of like, dude, can we like just deviate for like 1 second off? Like, I know it's very common for like, hey, this is the world in which the Skywalkers live in. We have to, everything breeds out of that one focal point of Skywalker. But it's like, dude, can we like just take a step back? Like, there's so much precursor to this, and I love that. I totally agree. That's what got me into it.
It takes time because, I mean, the average person is going to want to look at it and say, well, I know this. I know the Skywalkers, and we keep proceeding that way in our fundamental belief or fundamental viewership, because that's where people stick. And as we keep throwing more things out, you go, oh, wait a minute.
It's safe. The Skywalkers are safe.
Yeah,
and I think that's another great point, too, is it's easier to rationalize and show a belief system through characters than it would be in just me coming in and going, by the way, this is what the Sith believe, this is what the Jedi believe, and having a 30-minute lecture on that. It's much easier to show the actions of characters, so it makes sense why they lean on it, but I totally agree. Like, I never read X-Wing. That was the one where, when I was doing this research, I underlined it, highlighted it, dashed it.
highly recommend it.
Oh, man, that was the one I wanted to get into.
Granted, this is the thing. I quite like sci-fi books, and I've noticed that a lot of times I'll get myself stuck on, all right, I should start reading this series, but like X-Wing or, I mean, Warhammer 40K books now.
Oh my God.
You're talking series that get into dozens, hundreds of mass market
Warhammer
paperback
1000.
that are, now they're out of print, so if you can find it, it's a $50 paperback that's beat to snot.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in the hunt right now for some stuff like that, because I like reading them. But
yeah. Are you a Kindle fan at all? Because I've literally had to go to Kindle. I have to go to Kindle now. I can't reach any of these books.
You can't get them. And, I hadn't thought about that as the way to switch back, that at least I can then fill a collection too.
Yeah.
I went Kindle when I was in college at one point, because, when you're in college, you buy things you don't necessarily need.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I started returning to physical media kind of across the board, books.
Oh, nice.
CDs.
Way to get off the screen, and absolutely. And I think it's so funny to bring up Warhammer books and all that, because I am so much the same way. Oh my goodness, like I got to a point where I got the Marvel Unlimited app because I got really into the comic book. Same thing, where I'm like, I want to know more about the Sith. This specifically, I had to read. I had forgot what it's called. But it's called Tales of the Jedi: The Golden Age of the Sith. It was Tales of the Jedi is like the umbrella framework, and then the Golden Age of the Sith was like a arc in that. And these were like maybe released in the 70s. Maybe it was really early on. Yeah, I mean, I think original Star Wars came out and they're like, oh, this guy is the Sith. What does that look like? And then they built off it. But the whole point is like those comic books are now thousands of dollars, and it's like
you
I'm not.
find them.
I just want to know the story. So, but the fact that you brought up Warhammer, dude, we gotta talk. Oh baby, I don't know if Mark's told you about my my relationship with Warhammer, but man, It's the drug that I've just like put my foot in a little bit, and I take myself out because I'm like, dude, I will not return from this, man. Like, I will go
if
deep.
you get my brother was big, not for 40K, but he was big Warhammer, and that was before. In the last 2 decades they changed.
Yes,
The
30K
fantasy.
and 40K.
Well, they changed the fantasy side.
Oh,
it
Age of
used to
Sigmar.
be now it's Age of Sigmar, and it used to be much more Britannic and this whole thing. They were all based on different, essentially Euro powers, and then you also had their fantasy creatures. And oh my goodness, he was deeply entrenched to the point. He was the guy that was big painter on it and doing all.
Oh,
of that.
nice. Yeah.
And I started getting myself in the books again because he and I would read some of the books when we were kids because they're good high fantasy novels.
Yeah. Are you reading high fantasy or are you reading the sci-fi version of
I'm
those?
reading the 40K. So
Okay,
I was
alright.
reading Age of Horus, the series.
Horus
but I got
Heresy?
the Horus Heresy, but I got 5-6 books in.
There's like 20 plus. I mean,
There's over 140 that are technically included
Included?
in the
Okay.
Horus Heresy, but that's the issue is so I bought one that was a $20 through Amazon. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep buying them, and my whole plan was I'm going to buy them, I'm going to read all of them, and then I'm just going to bulk sell them to somebody that I think will actually enjoy them. It's a whole here you go. I'm not going to charge you $50 a pop. I'm going to charge you like $3 a piece through the series.
or college fund for your kids.
Yeah.
And you sell to
Well,
a
yeah.
collector. You know?
And now my issue is like I just stopped myself because I looked at the next 5 books and I was like, I'm going to spend $150 for 5 books out of this 140 book series.
Oh,
And
1,000%.
so I started going back to places like, locally Bell Book and Comic.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. I
They
play
have
Magic
the
the Gathering
little
there.
tiny, they've got the cubby hole that's got books in it.
Yep.
And myself and a friend of Mark's and I's, Nick, we were going through and I was like, it feels like they've got to be buying these just when they're buying through full collections of someone's stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're always mismatched. And I was like, I'm going to start putting this on my checklist to just look. Because he doesn't overcharge. He's just clearly putting them out as a, hey,
Yep.
I've got
will
'em.
you read this? And my answer is, yeah. And there's loads of 40K
Yeah.
or Fantasy Warhammer or otherwise, and they're constantly releasing more. I mean, you have such a odd range of
Absolutely.
content.
Yeah, and if I had to like sing anybody's praises, that owner of Bell Book Comics, he's such a cool guy.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, he's a great guy. That's the other thing too for everyone local or for everyone who's looking for something really in particular, the collection. Those local comic book stores, game stores, everything like that. It's extremely sad, but they also like to see it too, where like no joke, I remember in Florida, I was coming to this place every single time as a board game store, and I was always looking for a Playmates tricorder. It was this old one. They had it for it was probably earlier than the 90s, but probably in around the 90s. And it was like this plastic shell of a tricorder from Star Trek. And now if you want to buy it on eBay, it's like $400. You know what I mean?
right.
Whatever. And it's just like, but it's so funny. Like I was literally, because they had Star Trek props there, and I was trying to buy them, and every once in a while. And it was like 2 or 3 months into this venture, I got a call. They're like, "Hey, I noticed you're coming for Star Trek stuff. Like, we recently had someone in the community pass away. Their wife came in and donated everything. Just wanted to let you know that this is on ourselves. We'll actually store the box for you. Just go through it. You know what I mean? And
That's cool.
And it was one of those things where it was like they're selling them at value, which like even they're mismatched, and it was just like an incredible deal. And it's like, oh my goodness, like so. It's really cool to see these local owners like care about it, and they know that this is not just gonna sit somewhere. Like I love this thing, and so it's really kind of cool. So to hear that they do that with books too is awesome. That Bell Book's doing that, so that's a really cool thing. And
So how does this guy compare to Stuart from Big Bang Theory?
oh, dude, one time, no, the guy there is cool, but the one time in Florida, and at Bell Book, I did like the horrible thing. I was just getting into comic books, and I literally did the classic, like, yeah, so I'm kind of interested in Thor. Like, what's the best version of Thor? And he was like, dude, you want to start a rumble? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, wait, what do you mean? It's like Thor. I didn't say what's the best superhero. I know that's like faux pas. He's like, no, but like, no, there's this Thor, there's that Thor, there's this one before the time multiverse, there's this one there. And I was like, whoa, all right, I'm not educated enough. Like, so I got
Not there yet. And that's...
yeah, I got scared asking questions almost, but no, that's awesome that you had like the whole background with Warhammer 2 in the books, and I've I've done a little bit of the sci-fi end. I just finished up Aragon, which is like my high fantasy. That was a big one. I had never read it as a kid. Kind of always had it peripherally in the back, and I was looking for a new book series, and I finished that. But my wife just recently got me on Red Rising. Did you read Red Rising?
I did not.
That trilogy, or there's technically 6 of them. I don't know if that's a prequel or what, but that would be a book recommendation if you
I've
have
seen it
time
pass
in
through
between.
before as a thing that was suggested to me through. I use Goodreads to log my stuff.
Yeah. Goodreads. But yeah, Mark, do you ever venture on the Goodreads or
No, never been on there.
too much on the genealogy?
Well, so growing up, I used to be genealogy. Growing up, I used to be into fantasy, but lately I've just been into
War novels.
Historicals?
historical novels.
I know what, Mark. Come on.
Mark.
So not really, but I, obviously I still love lore, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
my
yeah.
fun reading, and then
We should do historical one day. You know what I mean? We really should.
we've talked about that. I don't know how it really fits into lore. Maybe we could talk about
maybe
like
that's the lore.
fake presidential rumors, Abraham Lincoln being a vampire hunter or something like that.
Yeah, I do love
Even
those.
like war-based stuff, you can lean into where different fantasy stuff started on things. You got to look at how early some of those started, and a lot of them were based around turmoil in the world. That it's like, well, you need an out, you need something or something that made people go, okay, there's good guys still, even if they're hiding in the dark.
Yeah,
even Red Rising is a good example of it's like a dystopian sci-fi, but a lot of their society is based on Greek. Now, granted, I'm going way back, but Greek and Roman mythology, but also the way they're holding up society. So that's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I like mythology too, right? So we we've talked
absolutely
about doing that as well.
Yeah, but no. So to bring it back home. Sorry, I derailed. I heard Warhammer, and I'm like,
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
fine. I got myself.
I have to
caught
know
up, too.
really quick though. I know this is a classic. Of all the factions of Warhammer, I don't know if you actually played or anything
Dwarves.
like that. Oh, nice. Okay, all right. That's all I needed. That's all I needed.
That's what I would be. I mean,
dwarves are
I'm very
sick.
dwarf personality.
You got little technology in base Warhammer. So fantasy, you could get gyrocopters, which is really fun when everyone else is maybe you have a hippogriff or something, and I'm like, I have machine guns on a helicopter, and you guys maybe have a rifle. It's a different game.
Yeah.
It's all we'll figure it out.
Because Garrett, my brother, was much more he had a full army and would go to the game stores and play sometimes. And we would play, I more so would put together stuff and attempt painting and fail miserably.
Yep.
And then do that. But the way to actually play those, and now they've started doing it for 40K, was a Mordheim and Mordheim adjacent now for 40K. So you can... On a table the size of your kitchen table, you can set up a map with a team or a squad of 6 creatures or humans or whatever and have those fights. And that was... Garrett and I would do that a lot. And that's what actually got me into the books for Warhammer.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Because they have Kill Team for Warhammer 40K, but it's called Mordheim, I think, for the Age of Sigmar. Yeah.
So
it's their version of... It's a skirmish. It's a skirmish.
Yeah,
Rather than
they're
the
small skirmishes.
2000.
Or maybe you'd max at 14-person squads.
Yeah.
And
Oh shoot, Mark looked at me. So Mark, sorry, we're talking in code here.
Yeah.
No. So wargaming or Warhammer is a wargaming, but the whole point is that normally it's these huge armies and there's 2,000 plus points, thousands of points, and each squad has these guys in it, and they cost so many points.
Right.
And that's what, I have this squad and that squad and this squad and this vehicle and that major person and this minor person and blah, blah, blah. You bring up to 2,000 points, it's huge. And those games take they can take anywhere from hours, you know what I mean? 90 minutes to 2 or 3 hours. And I've seen games, literally, they start in the morning and go all day. And sometimes people play 4 people, you know what I mean? Warhammer.
You do a huge table that would be the size of, this room. There's big tables that would be, all right, we're going to put our armies on corners. And you might start by saying, we're going to be in an alliance, but we know towards the end we're going to go against each other, but our armies say this is worse.
Yeah.
But back to Star Wars on that. There is that for
Star Wars Legion.
now.
I play Star Wars Legion.
There's Legion, there's Armada, if you like the space battles.
Yep.
And I keep trying
X-Wing
to get...
too.
I have a lot of X-Wing miniatures.
Oh!
I'm trying to get Mark and some people to get together so we can teach people how to play.
Dude, Gabe, look
Yeah.
no further, brother. I have been, this is Jenna, at this point, Jenna, you enjoyed the episode. Let's get Jenna off. All right, Jenna's now off. Gabe, I'm dying for stuff like this. I played a lot of Star Wars Legion. They have now Shatterpoint. Shatterpoint's like the next skirmish game, but the
People are like, or what?
Yeah, what? Yeah. No, but the whole point is I'd be playing Legion and I'd look over for the X-Wing people, and it looks so much fun, dude.
It
I
plays
love
fast
that
enough because I've even had so most of the X-Wing you're going to be 2 or 1v1, maybe 2v2. And I have a friend who's told me many a time, I don't want to play board games. I get too bored. And I've looked at him and said, I've said, try this with me. Just sit down and we'll do the introductory, because X-Wing works really well. They released a pack that's made. It's $30. You have, I think, 3 X-Wings in it and a Y-Wing.
Oh, then they have
no, 3 TIE fighters and an X-Wing.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're learning, okay, and they even have a ramp of, all right, first you're going to fly around a little and you're just going to learn fly. All right, did you do 2 turns of just learn how to turn, learn how to do this? Now, start shooting at each other.
Yeah.
Now, learn how to dodge. And then you're going to finish playing through one time, and then it's like, okay, now you're actually back to the points system. You're going to find out how to load out who's your pilot, what extra missiles do you have,
with the armament music.
And it gets absolutely crazy
and they have Ventners and stuff, and they have from the prequels, sequels, and they have all these other ones where I thought they have different factions in there too, where you can combine them, and there's the smugglers and
the primary kind of factions they have breakdown are the Rebellion. They have First Order. They have the Empire. They have, I think Republic. They have
CIS too. Smugglers. I thought that's what they call
so.
Them.
That's where they
Syndicate or smugglers, and
I think
it's some of the
the smugglers is where they tuck in most Boba Fett, Jango Fett.
Yeah, okay.
Slave One is on
Slave
there.
One.
So sick.
Oh, that's not. It's no longer. That's technically that's Legends still. That's no longer canon, Tony.
What's the actual name of
it's
it?
still. He called it Slave One. It's the pitch.
Yeah,
because even with it's now, if you buy any toys, it'll even still typically say Slave One in parentheses, but it's that's not the name.
What is it?
Just
it?
Boba Fett ship. I think.
Oh, really?
Well, a lot of times they'll break it down what the actual ship name is.
Yeah,
I remember. That's the cool thing about X-Wing. You learn these names, you're like, dude, I don't even know what an A-wing is, and then you're looking, you're like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And there's variants on everything either way too. If you back to the idea of Wikipedia, you start digging, you'll get into the whoa. I mean, there's people that you see a ship once in the background in a show.
Yeah.
And someone's like, nope, this is what it is. It's also been mentioned in this book. So that's why we know what it is, because it looks close enough.
Yeah.
Someone from Disney now corroborates and says, yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah.
So then everyone's like, all right, so this is what the information we know of it is, which can still be minimal.
Yeah.
It might be, well, it can move hyperspace or it can't. Or it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's always a thing that I didn't notice watching the movies and stuff until I started reading the books. That's one of the hindrances to the Empire so much is the TIE fighters can't hyperspace travel. So it's the benefit that the Rebellion always has. They can move because they have the ability in all of their ships typically to get out of there in long distance and come back, which you start seeing more in the sequel trilogy, that they're like, no, we need to be able to track them.
Yeah, and the Mon Calamars is actually where, what's his name? Oh my gosh, it's a trap. Yeah, Admiral.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
But yeah, their whole race is amazing at spacefaring, and because they're underwater, so then they're the main ones, and they actually have the ones that are hyperdrive. They're the ones doing the rebellion, and most of their ships are them. So it's pretty interesting, and the fact that it's a ragtag. But you're right, they're all hyper travel.
Yeah.
But dude, if you ever want to play, please hit me up. I'm always down. That's so much fun.
It's just, it's not that I've said no. It's just we haven't
organized it. Yeah. I got to find a time. Part of that is what we were talking about earlier. It's kids and stuff.
Gabe was giving us a lore. Yeah, Gabe was definitely giving us a lot of advice, or giving myself a lot of advice.
Can you get
Baby Mawson's coming in.
Right.
and you'll disappear for a little. That's how that goes.
Yeah,
I don't have time.
Yep.
But here's the thing: when it's those 3 a.m. nights, and I'm just taking care of stuff, that's when I'm looking up and
rocking
going,
a kid. You're on your phone.
All right, what's my list looking like? What kind of pilots do I need? You know what I mean? I'm trying to get some traction here, ladies and gentlemen. So no, I love that. But No, those games are so much fun, but I also love it so
Just
much
give
more
me
too
some-
because there's lore into it.
Just give me some Battlefront Galactic Conquest, Tony.
Oh, dude, Mark, it's so funny that you bring this up. So they talked about this. So Galactic Conquest fundamentally is, you're doing this whole like campaign, right? So you have the in space, you have on the ground, everything like that. And someone's like, I looked this up on Reddit. They said, what would be the best way to simulate Galactic Conquest, but with these games? So, for example, Star Wars Legion is a ground fight. X-Wing is a Space Armada fight. And then there's Star Wars. It's called Star Wars Armada, I think. And that's like basically your game engine because there's both in space and on the ground. But they're like, dude, this would take like a week to play because basically you play an Armada objective where like you're Empire or the Rebellion or whichever faction you want. But the point is that you take these two things and they're like fighting for space, or they're fighting to win that game, Star Wars Armada.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, you're going to have a battle in space. But then what you have to do is you take the contents of that card, translate it to X-Wing, play an X-Wing game of that, see who wins off that, and then you go and then play a Star Wars Legion game, and they're like, it takes forever. But literally, there's an essence of Galactic Conquest. It just takes 40 times louder.
Yeah, it's just the idea
yeah.
of building any tabletop game. And
Yeah.
now, I mean, that's the thing on those. I mean, Star Wars, the role-playing game, was one of the things that that helped them build a lot of their lore and canon information because it was they built when you release a book that's 300 pages just for your DM, let alone for your players. Now you're talking about firearms and races and all of these things.
Because it's a framework. It's now not a. It's literally a framework. It's a game.
And
They
an
have to
agreed
think.
upon by Lucas or whomever at the time. So now, of course, it's Disney. So back to the idea of canon, you lose the Legends stuff, but instead you sample it. You say, well, what of that is actually a tasty little morsel that we can take and say, this is really a cool thing. Thrawn being one that I said to Mark that is originally a Legends character. And I mean, even when you look at where Thrawn's been between Legends and what is now canon, he spans this wide range that now we're seeing more of, okay, we're moving that way. And I've said to Mark for a long time, and I still haven't watched much of Clone Wars and Rebels where Thrawn shows up in what is now canon. He is now in some of the new novels, the Thrawn Ascendancy, and those to me are these peak novels because Thrawn is, as a character, almost anti-hero-esque.
Yeah, he was the first EU books, by the way.
Yeah.
The Thrawn Legacy was the first canon. When they call EU, that was the official one. That was Thrawn, which is crazy to think about.
Well, but I think they knew that this is a character that a lot of people really grew to like, and we've lost a lot of the stuff that Thrawn was known for. He had different races that he had more or less enslaved or made or gotten a life pledge essentially from them to say, I'll do this until I die. I will protect you because you did something for me.
Kind of like the Gungan.
Yeah. And
Gungan.
and to me, now I never remember his race technically. The
Blue skin people.
Yeah.
Avatars.
But it's weird. It's not the same as Cad Bane.
No.
Different.
Correct.
Duros is Cad Bane. I do know that.
Chiss.
Oh, dude, I said Tist with a T. Gosh, I should have.
Because his name's also not Thrawn technically. But
I should have.
Because he's part of the Chiss Ascendancy.
I should have doubled down on that. I was too nervous. I was scared. You know what I mean?
I will.
Gabe sounds like an expert in this, and I was just.
I cheated.
It,
Took the phone out.
Yeah. No, there's no cheating here, right? It's all.
Hey, we knew this. Gabe knew this. There was no time in between. Google is not anywhere near us right now. No, absolutely. And so does that mean you haven't seen him in Rebels or what he was doing?
I have not. So I've not watched any of Rebels. I've only watched a little bit of Clone Wars, and frankly, on Ahsoka, I watched about halfway. I've been disappointed, frankly, in the
haven't we all?
Yeah, in the live action stuff recently, and a lot of the newer stuff that I was just saying this to Mark and some of our other friends that I am giving every single one a chance, even with Marvel and everything. And 9 times out of 10 right now, I get about halfway through, and I'm like, I
can't even do it.
Ran out of energy. That I'm like, there's nothing happening that pulled me in. Now back to what I said earlier, Andor immediately.
Oh my gosh.
locked me in, and I was like, all right, I have to. This is enjoyable to
Yeah.
me. We are building. You are throwing new characters, but not so many that it's this wild thing.
Yeah.
And you're trying to find out, okay, what are they doing and where are we building towards? And as you said, it's like, okay, so we're building these, so we know what these are going for.
Yep.
And we're seeing other members that are part of the rebellion trying to hide who they are and doing everything
Exactly.
they can to say, hey, this is wrong, but how do we make sure to protect people while not overstepping our bounds and saying, hey, we think this is wrong, so everyone thinks it's wrong.
Yeah, and you can't tell me, even in the history of our own world, whenever there's been a rebellion, every single person is not going in front of the mirror, adjusting their ties, you know what I mean, and walking into work. And not every single person is twisting their mustaches the second
Yeah.
they wake up. There's such a gray area, and fundamentally there's these people who are adjusting their ties, and they believe in the cause in which the rebellion is happening. And they are willing to turn a blind eye to some of the less savory things that the rebellion needs to
Right.
do. And Andor does that so perfectly. Within the first 10 minutes, he watched that show, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then the monologue of, oh my gosh, I can only think of
what's
from
his- yeah.
Arrakis
Dune.
from Dune, yeah. He's a Skarsgård. I can't remember his name. And the thing.
Oh, shoot. Nope, because Bill's his son, and nope, no, not.
Yeah, I can't remember it either. But you guys know who I'm
It's the
talking
eldest.
about.
Yeah, it's the father.
It's the dad who's in Thor, and
He's in Bootstrap Bill.
He's Bootstrap Bill. He's in
We're just going to
Mamma
circle the
Mia.
drain
Yeah,
here for a while.
Let's keep looking around. Stellan, thank you.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
That honestly was not a Google by
That was
Gabe.
not a
It
Google.
came naturally.
Yeah, we were just circling around. We wanted to see how long we could do. But the fact, his monologue, if you're not even a Star Wars fan and you just look at that scene, you cannot tell me that that's some of the best 5 minutes of cinema that has happened in the last, 5-10 years. I mean, it's just so raw and so, like, quite frankly, like, I love that part of it. You can't. There's some pieces of this where Star Wars is fundamental. Like George Lucas, I love his take on. Well, first off, this is his take. What am I saying? This is his thing. But I love where he goes. In essence, Star Wars is for kids, but it's for everyone. But the whole point is you should be able to explain good and bad, the Sith and the Jedi.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, but then the adults are also wrapped in because it's not just good, bad, and you know what I mean.
Well,
good,
it's the
evil.
constant argument,
yeah.
right? With the similar to like Thanos wasn't wrong. There's loads of people that are like, no, the Emperor's not wrong. They're trying to gather people together. Now, what you see, and arguably pretty easily, you look at Extended Universe and otherwise, it's like, no, the Empire's pretty bad. It's a strong arm of you need to live the way we live, and I mean that.
It's a war machine that needs to turn, and they're gonna take advantage of resources. If you're on a planet with resources, you're gonna do it. And typically, Star Wars doesn't go off the planets that are really good. They go off the planets that have a lot of the resources, and then that shows like Outer Rim and lawlessness and the taking advantage of. So there's almost some research bias here.
Yeah.
I'm not defending the Empire. No, but hey, there's something right. Yeah.
But there's that average Joe, that 18-year-old stormtrooper that has only known, and he thinks he's fighting for his country.
Yeah.
Right?
Or it's your way out. The idea that the Empire comes to your planet and you lived in destitute poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And you're given what you view as the hand reach out that says, hey, you
a
sign
rank,
up.
a station. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna. You can send your money back. You'll support your family. You'll do this.
You'll have money. You can see the galaxy.
Yeah.
You're gonna see the galaxy. That's great, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say you live on a planet that you've been farming for? Your family's been farming for centuries. They don't fly. You don't do this.
Moisture farmer on a planet with 2 suns.
With a lot of sand people really messing me up. And it's crazy too. And speaking of all that, that was one of the cool things. Did you read Kenobi at all?
I did not.
Okay, I read it because they were releasing the Kenobi series, and I was like, oh, this might be a good precursor. But that was a good example of, like, they showed the moisture farming, like the actual, like there was a science to it, and, there's like this big thing, and that was one of the craziest things about the Empire. They're like, it was kind of like the geopolitics of like, dude, these sand people are like wrecking you guys all the time. You know what I mean? And what do you do to kind of alleviate that problem? And that's where like they're like, well, we can't rely on the Empire. That's why I like Tatooine, because it was an Outer Rim planet. they're almost like, some people were like, oh no, the Empire would come in and help us. Like, no, we have to band together, and if we band together, then we have to pool our resources. Well, who decides to pool our resources? Is that the most justified? So even in this podunk town, there's this weird balance of, wait, there's like a power vacuum, but how do you fill it without giving anyone crazy amount of power? And it's like back and forth. So it wasn't the greatest book ever, Pete, to be honest. But
there's
it gave
too
you an
many
idea
for them all to be good. Let's be honest.
Yeah. But it gave you a good idea of exactly that.
Heir to the
power.
Empire as a series exists, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
one of
yeah.
my favorites. But it's my favorite because it's bad.
It's like dubious, right? It like does a bunch of stuff.
You're throwing all this stuff out of we're creating clones of Luke and he fights himself. It's like, what are we doing?
Oh my gosh, I've never read it because someone's like saying it's so right field, but I kind of love that.
Yeah,
I highly recommend it. It is
like Shadow Link. You know what I mean?
Well, it's
Shadow
exactly
Luke.
like Shadow Link. It's
yeah.
Palpatine shows up and manages to clone Luke to create. It's not Palpatine. It's this other. Force,
I was about to say, if Palpatine
user.
returns, I'm
No,
gonna
it's
go
not.
crazy.
It's
Somehow Palpatine returns.
Yeah,
It's
killer.
It is highly up there for me, but it is one of the things that sure they could have
wild.
made. But that is exactly too why Disney looked at what is now Legends and went, we're gonna ignore all of this and we're gonna cherry pick the things we want, like Thrawn, and say this can exist here. Now he was already in Rebels and Clone Wars, so he did already exist in their world.
Yep.
However, he had extended life over there and now is being built in a different way. Now, they still haven't deviated too much from who he was. We haven't seen, I guess, I don't know. We've seen a decent amount of the Chiss in the novels. I don't know if you see them much.
Well, Rebels, and then, oh my gosh, that's when you get Hauser. Hauser's a cool guy. He was a clone. I'm mixing that up, I think. That might have been Bad Batch, or I'm thinking Hauser.
I think it was Bad Batch.
That was Bad Batch for Hauser because he has the teal on his armor. Ooh, so
Yeah.
clean. No, I'm thinking of the one guy who was with the Twi'leks. That's where Thrawn first starts. You remember? That's in Rebels.
Yeah.
There's a clone that's like helping him out, and Thrawn's kind of there, and it's like this huge weird, like he's trying to defend the local people, and Thrawn's kind of coming in like, oh, I'm trying to protect. You know what I mean? But then also it shows Thrawn's like trophy room where like every place he goes to help, he takes like a sacred artifact. Just as like
it's his whole pitch, and it's how he learns how this race functions.
Yeah, because that's how he gets in.
Right, and like in the books, it's frequently you see the throne room or you're in his trophy room, but it's artworks and otherwise, and many a time you have that breakthrough that he has where he's like, wait a minute, no, I was looking at this wrong.
Yep.
Because these people said something and I didn't connect to what they were saying versus what they emotionally did on a piece of art where you go, wait a minute, if they're saying this and this is how this looks, you can back into stuff. It's how we back into the past of the world. We look at art pieces and we go, well, what were they trying to say here?
Yeah, what was the emotion? And it's cool because he's like the greatest example, even though he's not the best. He's not the best person, but he's the greatest exemplar of like putting yourself in someone else's shoes, because that's all he was doing constantly. He fundamentally figured out the best way to get people in agreement with you is like total understanding. Yeah, and once you know that total understanding, you also get total manipulation, and that's where the question of his loyalties.
That's where he.
So you guys haven't read any of the new Thrawn Extended Universe books? They are canon, not technically, but they're.
I've read a few comics.
Replaces the Legends
original.
old stuff.
Yeah,
I've read a few comics, but that was not same.
I've seen the books at your house, so I've seen the covers. Does that count?
Yeah. Well, Mark, looks like you signed yourself up.
Back to what I said. They get back to political stuff, but you start seeing the Chiss more, and one of the big things there, because you mentioned the Outer Rims a couple times, the Outer Rim has always in Star Wars been no, the Empire doesn't pass it because they don't know what's out there. Nobody does. The Outer Rim is this point of like in that universe, we don't know what's beyond that.
Yeah, or it's like the crime syndicate central, and they don't want to spend the time enough to figure it out
through it.
And it's one of the classic things where like the syndicates are almost in a way more powerful, because they don't abide by this huge body that is this governing, war machine that the Empire is, they are able to operate at the lowest level of mercenaries to the highest level of government because it's all dirty. So it's almost like this weird thing. Like, how do you get this legislative body that is controlled by this governing person into something as chaotic and as wide as the spectrum as the syndicates? And I think that was one of the big reasons too. They're like, I don't want to mess with this. Like, this is hot space.
So in the books, you have Thrawn is essentially sent out to start venturing past the Outer Rim. Well, Thrawn, being Chiss, is from beyond the Outer Rim. He was originally sent in.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Chiss are outside. They're deep.
Okay.
And in the books, you get to a couple points where you see what is the primary. The larger ships are going to be more your
Star Destroyers.
Yeah, but
Ventnors. Ventnors are from
but
Republic.
it's more what the class type is essentially.
Oh,
they're,
oh, dude, I know this too.
But-
Golly.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So you see the Chiss version of those, and it becomes this whole thing of like, well, no, this is important because the Chiss were using Thrawn more or less to infiltrate the Empire, is what we've seen thus far in those books. Is well, he's there to find out what the Emperor is doing and make sure that they're not going to try to push the boundary, which is why you do get, especially in those books, you get a back and forth of Thrawn that Thrawn is...
That sounds good.
Dude, you can't do this to me. You can't. I just started Red Rising. Oh, I got to read these books.
He's difficult. He is bad in many ways. He does things that are heavy-handed typically, but I think it feeds back to the idea that you said that the rebellion many times looks at it that way. It's like, no, we had to do this because if we didn't, the Empire was going to blow up planets.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you see Thrawn do.
Mm-hmm. God, I love that, dude.
I
gotta
know
read
that
it.
you've mentioned before that Thrawn is shown in Rebels and in Clone Wars knowing who Darth Vader is Anakin, and they touch on that frequently in the books. Where he starts to notice of like, well, he acts like he's not the same person, but this is the same man, and he's one of the few who will actually stand up to him, and Palpatine will look at Vader and be like, no, you don't mess with that guy. Yeah. Because he, one, is pivotal to me, and two, will wreak like massive vengeance if something happens, which starts to lead to this like, well, does Palpatine know that there's other things there? And he's like, well, I want out there, but I know there's things going on. Are we gonna get hammered if...
How greedy is he? How willing is he doing it? And the same thing with Tarkin. Tarkin was the same way.
Yes.
Tarkin and Thrawn were one and the same, where like I think they were the only two, and it wasn't because they were so high ranking they knew about Anakin, but they were so fundamentally like the best warrior is one who understands peace and knowing not only your enemy but the people around you.
Because they know their...
You have to know in order to make your next best move, and they literally took the time and day to study Darth Vader, and they're like, oh, dude, it's just this kid from Naboo. You know what I mean? Like X, Y, and Z. So I really like that.
Yeah, he's still just a person.
Yeah, but you understand the motives. You understand his reactions. That's why like there's so much respect carried around.
Yeah. Well, and Thrawn, too, I mean, he knew so much about the Jedi and the Jedi Order, right? Because that was his thing, knowing the cultures and stuff. Yeah. I mean, in Rebels, he could really easily identify Kanan Jarrus, who was Caleb Doom.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you were taught by Belippa.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was her last name. Who was taught by Mace Windu. Who was taught by, like, so he knew, all that.
Yeah, the genealogy
of the
almost,
Jedi, which, obviously I like that. You know? And I've got that in my notes.
So what you're saying, so you're saying is you're Thrawn. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. No, that's awesome, dude. I'll have to, like, I was complaining mid there because I was like, God, I just started Red Rising, which is a really good book. I have to read the Thrawn books. I
highly recommend it.
That
I'd be glad to lend them to you because I found them to be, I think they're great books. You have a lot, you get a lot of, I think it's the second one, spends a lot of time on Coruscant.
Ooh, nice.
Which to me is all back to political stuff. That is the political hub of the Empire, of the realm, of the galaxy there.
Yeah.
So the idea is, no, you do need to include it, as you see in Andor. You see, we have to go back to this planet because it is how it'd be like if you're writing some story about the states in anything. If you want to include politics, you better include DC. You have to.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, speaking of that, is, did you ever read the Plagueis book?
I did not.
Okay,
No,
that'd be the one I would leave
so
you with.
good.
If you had to give
Yeah.
us a homework, I'm going to give you homework.
All right.
Plagueis is a good one because they go, it goes into the politics and the banking of why the prequels work. Because the prequels fundamentally, people say there's so much politics, but it's so funny. They like go so high level with you. You don't really understand the politics of what's going on, but the Plagueis book goes wildly into that, and that'd be my one
And
recommendation.
he's there in the background, all in Phantom Menace, you know? It's,
Oh yeah. Because
good.
all this stuff, when someone's like, "Oh, Palpatine did such a great job setting this up," it's like, no, Palpatine was. Sorry, I'm not a Palpatine fan, so let me just clear the air. I'm a Plagueis boy. Palpatine literally just stole everything Plagueis was doing.
Well,
Plagueis
but that's
planned all this stuff.
the pitch on the Sith.
Yeah,
Either way,
true.
For
Yeah,
sure,
the
for sure.
idea is they have to keep replacing themselves.
Yeah.
You can have one.
thanks
Well, the
to,
funny thing
They're
is,
basically Highlander.
thanks
but
to Daddy
yeah.
Bane, you know?
dude. But yeah, I was about to say, dude, Gabe, I want to jump on that comment. No, but no, the reason why that's because it's tougher because that was the so just for my background, I got super obsessed with the extended universe because I did all of Sith. I was getting so frustrated because I was like, man, we keep looking at all these Jedi, and like it's kind of like Lord of the Rings where they're like, who's the Dunedain? You're like, dude, what's the Dunedain? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or, what's the Numenorians? They're like, this rule of two. And it's like, dude, what's the rule of two? And then, I kind of like went way obsessive. Like literally all the extended universe Sith books I've read. So like when I was writing mine out, I have like 10, 15 books here. They're all Sith books. So all of mine kind of went into this. But the whole shtick is that, rule of two was a Bane thing, but Plagueis was trying to stem away from it. He's like, guys, this is dumb. Like, we don't need to do this. And then Palpatine still killed him. But yeah. The whole point is they're trying to break it, and then it came back again.
Well, it's hard to break it when you do still find out, even if your master says, we don't have to do this, you're going to be like, but you told me that it's a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to be able to take your seat unless
and
I do what is perceived to be necessary.
Man, dude,
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil the book. That's why I'm going to leave it there. So, also, maybe don't look at our philosophies of the Sith yet until you read that book, because we do a lot of spoilers in that one. No, but that's a perfect logic.
In the first episode, we talk a lot about that book.
Oh, you're right. We do. Yeah. Maybe mix the first one too, but no. That's exactly what the Sith do, and there's a lot of nuance there in that book, and it's a really good book for that. But they also talk a lot of the politics and stuff. But some of the other books I kind of was like looking over and thinking about it was a lot of the Sith book, but when I was researching all this, it brought me back to my first extended universe experience, which was I was probably in like 3rd or 4th grade. And I remember going to the library. We had a library thing at school, and they had let us do it. And I was always big on the medieval books and how the castles work and checking out those diagrams and everything. And then the book, and it was literally called Tales of the Bounty Hunters. It got released in like 1996, so it's a pretty old book. Old as myself, like I can say that.
Pre-Phantom Menace, so it's
pre-Phantom Menace. Yeah, but the only reason why it caught my eye was at that point I just started watching Star Wars, or my parents watched it like right around that. Like whole point is like I just got watching Star Wars, and I'm like, dude, Boba Fett is sick.
Yeah,
it's like the first Mandalorian. And I saw the Mandalorian on the cover. I'm like, there's books on these boys? Like, yeah, I'm gonna read it. I don't even remember a page of that. Because remember
one of the
Wookiee braids.
Lucas things that he did when saying, okay, you're allowed to do comics, you're allowed to do books, you're allowed to do all this. He locked in at one point that you cannot do anything pre the original trilogy because he had a plan.
He wanted to
He
run
had
right.
one set,
Yeah.
which is interesting because we have a sequel trilogy now, and I don't necessarily know that he had built that in his head. I mean, clearly, because he handed it off.
Right.
But he did have the idea that, I could go backwards.
Yeah.
And, I mean...
He said he had a notional idea of what he was going to do moving forward, but it sounded like Disney
but it wasn't...
just...
Yeah.
threw it
Versus... He clearly had this ideation on those first 3. And, I mean, you look back, and I haven't watched them, and, oh, boy, it's got to be going on a decade and a half. So
Really? Oh, dude, I highly recommend watching them
of
again.
the prequels. Okay.
Of the prequels? Oh, yeah. I haven't watched any of the original... any of them in quite some time.
Oh, wow. So we're going to have it next weekend,
Well, because
Binge
there's
'em.
just so much there now that...
Yeah.
And part of that to me becomes I can one, I like watching movies too much, which Mark can probably attest to. So I can frequently lose myself in the idea of like, do I watch something I've seen or seen many, many times? Or do I watch something new that's potentially different, frequently bad?
Yeah. I was about to say, it's such an interesting way. I'm the opposite. I like rarely watch new stuff. And I find myself in the sinkhole of rewatching Harry Potter, rewatching Lord of the Rings, rewatching Star Wars, like rinse and repeat. I don't know what's wrong with me, but it just gets to the movie.
I think you're closer to the standard, frankly.
Really?
I think most people, when you talk to them, will say, because I'll have people ask that, what's that movie you go back to all the time? It's like, oh boy, I got one that I've watched since I've been an adult, and we'll call it 18. I've watched like 5 times. Very few other movies after I hit that point have I watched more than maybe twice.
What's that one?
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
I don't know many people that have. It has Robert Downey Jr. after Rehab, before Iron Man.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And Fat Val Kilmer.
Whoa.
Val Kilmer plays a gay detective, and Robert Downey Jr. is hired to be a detective in a movie he's interviewing, or he's auditioning.
Is this the movie that like Mel Gibson like took a chance on him and after Rehab, or he had done a couple before?
This is a pretty close to like his end of Rehab.
Yeah, okay.
Thing.
It's 2005, by the way.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So yeah, it's a great movie. It's a comedy. It's an action comedy, but it's silly.
Yeah.
It's very silly.
Yeah.
Because it's just very silly. I won't spoil it. I highly recommend people watch it.
Okay, I'll add it to the queue. But yeah, no, that's interesting.
But especially on back to the idea of exactly what you guys talk about when you're leading to a specific lore of some sort. You like more Star Wars or more Harry Potter or more Marvel. There's so much out there. If you don't essentially stick to it, it can become hard to stay relevant and cognizant to what's happening.
Yeah, well, I would argue we're pretty relevant and cognizant.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think so. Here's my thing, and maybe this is just a quick therapy or psychology thing for me right now. And Mark, let me know if you're the kind of same way. I'll be honest. There's something about I know fundamentally what is going on in this movie, almost down to the T. But I watched it as a little kid, and I had appreciation for some scenes, or I had appreciation for good guy, bad guy. I'm kind of establishing some moral compass, and I can see the characters grow. And then as like a high schooler or a teenager, I'm really kind of looking at this going, okay, well, you know what I mean? There's some things now. There's this Empire thing. Okay, well, the Death Star blowing up. That's kind of wild. There's like 20,000 people on that thing. Like, what are the moral implications? But then it's like, it's funny because I know fundamentally the content's not changing, but I'm changing. And I'm getting older. And as I'm watching this stuff, I'm going, wow, I'm looking at the scene differently. And I think that's what keeps me up at night, but that's the exciting part of it. In a weird, I don't know if that makes sense or maybe this just makes me crazy, but like that's the same reason why I like rewatch Star Trek is like as a high schooler I was trying to figure out what the heck to do with my life and then watching all this stuff and it's like, or even The Office. The Office is like a fundamentally funny show when you're in high school. It gets so much funnier when you work in an actual office and then you you see the jokes and stuff. And I think the same thing with these ones. Like if you're willing to think deeply on these things, it's almost like its own form of entertainment because now I find myself in long car rides thinking about, even though like, someone's like, dude, you just watch Harry Potter, or Star Wars for the, 10th time in the last maybe 10 years or whatever, once a year or whatever it is. Yeah. And they're like, why do you keep doing that? And in like a really weird way, it's like now I'm kind of, this is going to sound even crazy. I'm really excited to become a dad for multiple reasons, but also for that to change my view on this stuff too.
What are the things you focus on? And to be honest, like I understand that as a thing with watching film. Yeah. There's always so much more coming out. And I get myself lost in that. I could watch this or I could watch this. Now, mind you, many times when or it's talking about Star Wars or otherwise, if I do find somebody that hasn't seen it, and I'm not going to be the person that stares at you and is like, you're going to react in this way, because you're not. I don't know how you're going to react, and I don't care. We'll discuss. We'll talk at the end or a little in between, but I'd rather just watch it and do that.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you're married now, Mark, you have a girlfriend, you find those things. You'll find, hey, you never watched this deeply. And maybe, or you guys have both watched this and watched it a lot, but tell you what, might not immediately click the exact same way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no,
well,
never. Yeah.
And a good example of that is my, my other relationship, with Sean, our guest for the Rise of the Revamp episode, right?
Yep.
Sean and I were roommates in college, and our other roommate Garrett and I grew up watching Lord of the Rings, and I think we overhyped it for Sean because we were like, these are so good, like some of the best cinematic movies you'll ever see.
They're not great.
And then,
well, all right, hold on, cut it.
But we watch it.
Cut that.
But we watch it with Sean. Sean's like, meh, and me and Garrett were like, what?
Yeah.
But, I mean, a lot of it's nostalgia, right? But a lot of it we were just more into Lord of the Rings. Sean was never into Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean?
I might partially dislike Lord of the Rings because my brother was diehard for it. So
that's also
frequently he would capitalize the TV either in our playroom or upstairs and be like,
was he older, by the way?
2 years older,
Oh,
a year
dude,
and a half.
yeah, dude,
so
you're
he was like,
second
we're
player.
going to watch Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings. And so you watch Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, this is not fun for me. It's not my thing. Mm-hmm. And I've just never really gotten there. I've had that conversation with Mark, I believe, before. It's just not my thing. Now, you mentioned a little earlier, though, on past stuff otherwise in Lord of the Rings. And Garrett is my brother, not Mark's friend Garrett, but
I was about to say, I was like, I would think so. You guys don't look that much alike.
He read Silmarillion. He got deep in Lord of the Rings stuff and did all of that because he would rather look at it that way of like, okay, so back to what we're talking about here is what is the foundation of what was created in these worlds?
Who are the Numenorians? Like, what does that look like?
What was this
Dune
world?
Dine,
What were all these things? And I mean that similarly to what's happening with Star Wars, we're seeing that a little with Lord of the Rings between HBO and Amazon creating these new shows.
Yeah.
That I asked Garrett when Amazon released the Rings of Power. I was like, so, and he's like, I watched the first couple episodes. It's a fun watch. It is not. Silmarillion is not correctly built, which is what, similar to Star Wars, you have the die-hard Lord of the Rings fans saying, he's like, this is screwed up. This is wrong. Mm-hmm. This isn't how this is supposed to work. This isn't who these people are. They wouldn't look like this. They wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But that's what happens with anything when you create a visual medium with live actors is exceedingly hard to create consistently because I can write a book where this year everyone's 20 and then the sequel, if I'm George R.R. Martin, is 30 years later. I write it and they're maybe 5 years older.
Yeah.
You can't do that as a human. We don't have that ability.
We sadly age. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the other thing too is there is form of build up, and there's also this form of so the Rings of Power fall into this a little bit, where outside of just the visual medium, I think there is fundamentally, at the end of the day, HBO needs to make money.
Yeah.
And they're looking at this going, we're spending so much money on this to make this look good. Now, when Peter Jackson did all this stuff, he kind of, flipped the bird to the, the production team, or not the production, but to the powers that be and was like, I'm doing this, put faith in me, throw money at me, we'll get this figured out. And he was able to do this with not a lot of top, corner office people into it.
Yeah.
Well,
sadly, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Mind you, but once you get a movie under you that makes $1 billion, you get to go,
you get a lot
never
more
mind.
steamroller.
We can double down. We can do this. You've clearly got this working.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's tougher because now movie theaters, people don't want to make the big movies anymore. They want to make the TV shows. The TV shows are generating more revenue.
Security,
it's job security. I'm guaranteed 8 episodes. I'm guaranteed 4 seasons. I've now, instead of getting a 2-hour time slot, I now have technically 10 hours because I can do 45 minutes an episode and I can do this, I can do this, blah, blah, blah. And then that's when, because of all that security, because of everything, there's more hands and there's more cooks in the kitchen, there's more of this stuff.
Yep.
And I feel like that's where we're running into is because Rings of Power is fun. You can tell, though, that they're taking liberties to make it accessible for everyone, and they're also trying to do fan service at the same time. And I think fundamentally that's very difficult, and that's why all this new stuff is kind of getting because they're trying to appeal to every person on the street. They're not trying to appeal to the Garretts, to the Marks, to the Tonys,
Right.
to the people who, I mean, I know, Gabe, you really care about this too, but, the whole point is like the Silmarillion, like people who try to read it or try to go deeper into the Lord of the Rings, and, you're always going to have a thing. By the way, over this trip to Vegas visiting my brother, I got back in Rings of Power, and so I watched all the way there and all the way back, so I'm almost done with season 2.
Okay, yeah.
Going back to some of our conversations that we have, and I was like, oh, dude, this is like, it's a fun watch. It's a fun watch, fundamentally.
Yeah.
But it's not one of those that I'm going to go back to and rewatch 17 times.
Yeah.
It's, I'm kind of powering through this.
Which
it's pretty cool.
It's odd to see. So, like, the Lord of the Rings movies, I guess they're untouchable because Peter Jackson did such a good job. So, like, I think it helped because J.R.R. Tolkien was, renowned for. I'm going to give you the backstory on this tree branch for 3 pages, right? And
you have the ability of things to remove.
Yes, and so Peter Jackson's like, well, I can do that with one screen pan,
Yeah.
And then so they're very good, and they're actually pretty true to the books.
Yeah.
But then,
Yes and no.
There's a couple of scenes.
There's the
Obviously.
argument of, do you watch the extended or do you watch regular?
obviously
extended.
extended,
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I
A word
figured, but
extended family. Yeah.
I don't think I know a single person that's like, no. I'm the
Theatrical
person that's
version.
like, they're just too long, but at the same time, I understand. I mean, you miss out on a arguably pivotal character in terms of that universe of Tom Bombadil of things when.
Oh yeah.
In the standard, he's non-existent.
Yeah. They're kind of reworking it a little bit in Rings of Power.
Yeah.
So kind of because there is a question of like, it's a classic. Wait, why didn't you have the eagles fly you over? Also, why didn't you talk with Tom Bombadil? He's literally the most powerful guy.
Yeah.
And literally, I just watched a scene where he was just like, "You're gonna have to face Sauron and all these evil powers that be. Like, this is your journey. It's not mine." So it's like in a weird way where Rings of Power is kind
Trying
of
to
cause that, show the causality of that. No. It's Tom Bombadil was there toward the beginning of Arda. Arda is a world that they live in. He was there since the beginning. He's one of the most powerful Maiar. Just he's the old guy at the bar.
Yeah.
He's lived a life. He doesn't need to go on this cross country adventure. He's good. Unlike Up.
It's the same
Up.
thing. Like Radagast was technically there, but he didn't do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you do with that? But he's in the Hobbit,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but I think with a lot of these mediums, Star Wars is also kind of falling trap to that because ever since Disney's got it, I think that's been a lot of their big thing of how do we apply to the masses, not how do we do the fan service.
Yeah.
And the problem that I'm having with Disney, and this is not going to go on a rant, is to be really quick. I apologize for even saying this. But the point is that the fan service that they are doing is not in the character development, and it's not fundamentally in the actions or in the environments in which they're in. It's these cameos, and they kill me. They absolutely kill me. Why are you bringing Ki-Adi-Mundi and the Acolyte? Why are you bringing in, you know what I mean? Like these pivotal characters, like, just let them, you know what I mean? Like, either make a story out of them or let them be. Like, these cameos are killing me.
Fan service?
It's such crappy fan service. I don't want to see live action, this.
It makes sense if it fits in the timeline, right?
Yeah.
Like, Cad Bane in
Book of Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Oh,
it was fun, but I think he probably should have been dead based on the timeline. Or
Yeah,
if
it was a
not,
weird one.
I mean, I don't know how long they live, but he's old. I mean, you could tell.
Well,
He's,
so I think that's the thing. I've said this to Mark many a time. It's a thing that I have. So, you look at Star Wars, and you look at, let's call the large series, the Skywalker series of 9. Frequently, we talk about, because you see it in the movies of, Jedis don't exist. You see Rey saying that there's no Jedis aren't real, and it's like, well, hold on, it was like 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's not that crazy. Yeah.
But a lot of that, and I just said this to Mark, I think a couple weeks ago, it gets back to this idea that it's like, no, it's planets we're talking about.
Yeah.
And yes, there may have been Jedis on planet, but even if one Jedi came off your planet, that is an urban legend in your mind. Is this person didn't exist? Did anyone?
Yeah.
Did you know this person? Oh, I knew him, but it's the village kook that said it.
yeah.
Yeah, and
That
Ben
everyone-
Kenobi can be literally masked in Tatooine.
Yeah,
but he's
yeah.
like Ben. But
And
it's
everyone's
also
like, well, how could this person not exist? I was like, because you're talking about a galaxy
Yeah.
far, far away. You're not talking about these 3 planets that are right next to each other. You're talking light speed travel from one end to the other that still takes days.
Yeah. And Mark made a good point in this. This is a while back. I think this was actually during Sean's episode. So is it you made it or Sean made it? I can't remember. The point is the fact that the Empire is also fundamentally trying to push down the Jedi. And they're the ones who are building these pathways to these remote planets. So of what they're hearing,
they're
it's
gonna
like cookie. They're going to propaganda it. So that makes sense.
They're going to say, no, that wasn't real.
And really, because the hub is Coruscant, right? The Jedi hub, and the Empire rules it now. So it's probably almost like a Nazi regime where you're like, you don't talk about.
Yeah,
it,
no. It's completely overran. And I think the other thing too, on top of that, so I should clarify. Cameos don't bother me if they do well with the character, meaning Cad Bane, I really think they did a good job. That was kind of fun to watch. I should maybe counter that just saying Easter eggs, meaning they do this one really notable character and it's like a scene and then they like walk away from it. Like, it's like, what? Like,
I think some of those from Disney, though, are a test. I really do.
Oh,
it's
I 1000%.
The character of, okay, people are upset about that. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We're not going to let that happen. But
man,
maybe we can do this. Because some of the crazy stuff you get into is when you actually deeply look into, it was the Baby Yoda thing. It's like, well, wait a minute, it's a Baby Yoda. It's like, well, yeah, but they live to be like 1,000. So you can throw in this race at a wide range of ages, and they can... Yoda... seemed like he aged 8 million years somehow back to the which does create lots of issues between the original and the follow-up. It's like, well, it was like 30 years max.
Yeah.
How did he age that much? He shouldn't have. It was maybe that he was living in exile so long that it was just like, well, I'm giving up on life.
Well, that's what they said Ben Kenobi.
They exactly. It's the Ben Kenobi thing.
But he's out in Tatooine. He's not wearing sunblock.
Well, the official canon is that both Yoda and Yoda was masking himself, and the mass exertion of the Force aged him up. Obi-Wan was hiding Luke, and that's what aged him up.
Just the woes of Tatooine was like that was.
Well, it's
like,
it's a mass exertion of the Force,
using the
Force so much. It exerted, it aged his body.
Kenobi, funny enough, so the Kenobi book, they literally talk about it's Tatooine. Like, he is personally not putting his cloak over his head. He is doing things that are like, he's like aging himself on purpose. So that's how they explained it. So no, but that's great too. I like that masking. And the other funny thing, someone's like, well, why hasn't Grogu talked yet? And blah blah. I'm like, Yoda's like 800 years old, and he still has not mastered the right sentence
fundamentals
structure
of the basic language. That you're like,
why are we
so the fact that he's like 30 years old and can't form a sentence,
it
kind of tracks.
He's 80 basic years, which means like, to take it back, he'd be maybe like 10.
Yeah,
maybe closer to probably like maybe 10 comparatively to humans. Which
right, exactly.
I mean, you're going to meet 10-year-olds that sometimes talk like idiots, and we also developmentally by race or not race species, you don't know how those species interact, which is kind of a fun thing with Grogu as you start seeing that. And I think, especially as we have better CGI, Disney's thinking, well, we can do some of this. We can show, here's this species and they do whatever weird thing. Because, well, on that note, we're about to get some Hutts again.
Ooh, yeah.
Or I saw the rumor mill that we're getting Hutts again.
Yeah.
And we're getting, it was a famous actor, I think, was supposed to play the next.
He's going to voice, that's sick.
Jabba the Hutt's son and whatever. But it's like, well, that's kind of a fun thing you start creating. And, at some point, we kind of discussed the Outer Rim energy.
Yeah.
Bring that stuff back in. I'd love to watch a bunch of it. I think it's part of the reason that I like Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett. I know a lot of people didn't, but it was, to me, was this good. No, that is this Outer Rim world, that it is just all, frankly, bad people that rule that area. It is...
And they're trying to do it in a lawful way or in a good way.
Yeah.
On like Mos Espa, but still, he's still taking royalty or whatever that the
Daimo.
Daimo, yeah. So I mean, and also my only problem with Book of Boba Fett is that we don't know the condition of Max Rebo. I wake up in the middle of the night.
The blue elephant.
Yeah, I still wake up in the middle of the night, not knowing if he's safe
because it was bombed.
Because it was bombed.
Yeah.
He's got to have made it, but I digress. But no, I think that is one of those crazy things too, where I liked it as well. A lot of people didn't like it because I think there's so much overlap with the Mandalorian. They're like, it's just Mandalorian season 2, and I was like, okay, it's Dave Filoni. I think he wanted to build up his character a little bit because probably some Disney exec was like, we don't want to touch this. But he wanted to build the character a little bit more before the next season, just so we're not like in the lurch. And he found this to be a good avenue, and quite frankly, like, it's probably good because it left Boba Fett's actor, I can't remember his name, but probably like kind of got him out of limelight a little bit too, to give him some, I don't know. It just ended up working out.
Talk about Star Wars job security. I mean,
Oh
he
my
secured
God.
himself
Goodness,
as the clone, right? So any live action clone stuff, especially now in that era, I mean, he's the perfect age for it now, right?
Yeah,
it's
it's
age.
the-
It's
all right,
like
we can
Clone
use
War
him.
video.
Yeah.
Clone
War vet?
Clone War veterans. If I can talk, yeah.
And it's interesting to see all this stuff play out. So it's not like I've lost all hope. I'm very excited to see what they do with Andor 2. They need to Disney needs to get out of their own way. Let them cook. They killed it season 1. Just let them be. Let them do it. Let them do what they need to do, because I really believe they could kill it on season 2. But it's also making me
Is that
a little
confirmed?
nervous.
Is an Andor season 2 confirmed?
It comes out next year, doesn't it?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
coming out in like 2025, I thought. Yeah. So, I'm
because
super
the
excited.
Star Wars stuff next year, I think, is Andor season 2. I don't even remember what it. There might be. There's a movie, isn't there?
Yeah, but that was a whole movie in
it's so
between.
weird.
It's a Dave Filoni movie, I think.
there's
That's
a-
the
It's
Mandalorian.
the
Mando and
that's
Grogu
the book
movie.
It's the Mandalorian
It's like
and
the
Grogu or whatever.
end
Yeah,
of
and then
that.
they're doing
Which is
another Rey
good
movie.
to accept that story needs to die, because back to I much prefer the book of Boba Fett to the follow-up seasons of Mandalorian. I think they
Mandalorian season 1 though was
Mandalorian
so
season 1 was
so
great.
good.
Yeah.
But the rest, we start throwing a lot of stuff
Lizzo
out
and Jack Black
just
made
to,
it in. Yeah.
to just be like, here's things, and it's like,
Yeah.
See, that was weird, but I love that episode only because like they had Christopher Lloyd as like a separatist
guy.
loyalist. That was
Yeah.
so cool.
I like
He's
that.
Dooku was a visionary, and I'm like, oh, that's
Wait, Doc Brown? What
Yeah.
are you doing here? Did you perfect your time travel? Yeah. Where's the DeLorean,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and I agree. It started losing its luster a little bit. I still found it a fun watch, but it didn't grasp me as much as season 1. Season 1, I was like,
Yeah.
who are these men? Like, we finally get this Mandalorian creed. Wait, whoa, there's a creed to this? Like, it's not just like this bounty hunter. There's like an actual religiously like organization. Like, I love those deeper things, and they're like really trying to attack it. And then I think he was trying to do a lot of heavy lifting to fix a lot of what the sequels are doing, and also tie in Ahsoka. And then all of a sudden, I think the burden got way too much, and I think they're just trying to kind of upkeep everything else.
there was a
And
danger with doing the Ahsoka thing, because the Ahsoka thing,
like
Ahsoka
linking
show,
it with Mandalorian.
Well, yeah, and the show didn't do great for him, because I think Ahsoka as a character was working really well in animated, and I think they knew they had learned that Ahsoka's this fun character. Well, now you threw it into live action, which back to the idea of, well, we can't replace the actress, you can't do this, you can't do that, and we kind of fell out from what Ahsoka was a little.
Yeah,
and with
was
Rebels,
pissed, too,
we
by the way.
started.
That
you
voice
just-
actress. She
Oh,
was
yeah.
mad.
Yeah.
She could have done it. I don't know why they didn't pick her. But I digress.
Well, and that's exactly what happens when you do all this. Is like, well, now when you're having a cartoon and you're having live action, you're doing this, and you're saying they're the same universe.
yeah.
Start creating odd stuff, which
Mhm.
I mean, similar. You look at DC or Marvel, and they have cartoons and live action, and typically, it has been that they're different universes.
Yep.
However, I say that, and Gunn has been speaking out that currently the DC universe that he is creating is starting with Creature. What are they calling it? Creature Commandos.
Oh,
It is the official, this is canon.
Yep.
Now, there are things that they mention from Peacemaker and from some other shows and things that he's like, no, Peacemaker is part of it, and we are gonna. But there are parts where like the Justice League shows up, the old Justice League is like, no, that doesn't matter anymore. That's a fake thing. Which, good luck
with that,
because that now you're crossing a lot of wires that are going to get people going. Wait a minute, so
that's why
this
Marvel
is, but it's not. And these cartoons are, but and it's hard to bring cartoons to intersect with live action because there is too much. Now it's this character has existed in both. Yeah. They don't look the same. They don't act the same.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay for cartoons to live on their own island.
Yeah, to be a cartoon.
Hey, man, but like that's what Marvel did the same thing. I think a lot of people are getting just like, I think Loki was a really good. I didn't watch it. I heard a lot of things from what you're talking about, Mark. I'm talking for you. I shouldn't be talking for you. But my point was like this extended universe or this multi-universe thing got a little out of control. Yeah, I don't know. Do you feel like that? I'm speaking for you. I don't mean to, but that's just what I hear. Like rumblings on the internet where they're just like, okay, wait, so what's going on here? What's this? What's that? And they're trying to add everything in, and I don't know. It's just too much.
Yes, but. It has gotten out of control, but it was the only path forward. That's why they did it because they ran out of they hit the ceiling.
Yep,
probably too quickly. But they knew doing live action they had to. Back to that idea.
Correct.
They also call
there are
lightning
people
in a
who've been
bottle.
playing these characters for 20 years at this point.
Yeah,
they had to
shell out to
they had to
the multiverse,
fade them out and be like, okay, who's our next, and how do we do it?
Which I just saw a thing that because we know RRDJ's coming back as Doctor Doom, and now Chris Evans might be, and I'm just like, are you
for Fantastic Four?
Yeah,
is he gonna be...
I don't know.
No, there's some people that are rumor mill saying that
right.
he's gonna play the Hydra, Captain America.
Like that variant or whatever.
And there's a lot of stuff happening which is making people a little nervous of like, so you're so lost now that you're
gonna pick a random
all of your old people back, like please, which means they're also just shelling out the dough. I don't.
Which that's what I don't like.
RDJ probably is going to be making 150 million, 200 million for a movie. Or maybe
crazy. Yeah,
100 million a movie for a couple movies because he had said. Now post Chris Evans, but he had said he's like, I have to stop this. Like I can't.
Yeah.
Because
I want to do other things.
Well, right, you get locked into it. That even if you're in another movie, it's like that's Iron Man. You're like,
but also in
I want to be
in a weird way for him, he was probably like, I'm gonna throw him a number. Because like we all have that. You're like, okay, what's the number?
And they're like,
all right,
yes.
whatever. Like 200, and they're like, oh yeah, great, sign it right here. And he's like, really? You know what I mean? I bet you it's exactly what happened. I mean, I have a feeling, and I don't know. There's something like really deep down. It's like the Spider-Man and Batman conundrum. It's like if I get another freaking actor to come in here and show me another origin story, I'm gonna go crazy. I get what Spider-Man's doing. I get what Batman's doing. Just because the guy who plays Edward in Twilight.
Robert Pattinson.
Just because he's a more edgy Batman doesn't mean they make it cool. Like in my brain, it's like it's
Okay, I actually like our new Batman because have you either watched Penguin at all?
I haven't watched Penguin yet, but I watched.
I'm
Batman.
so sick. But that's well, I guess my argument is exactly this. I'm so sick of all these like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, can you guys just accept that you started this origin and go, yes, I've successfully started this character here. Even if you change the characters, it doesn't even matter to me. But just move to something different, and then. But maybe that's what Penguin's doing.
But
I
think that's what I'm trying to say with the Batman, and their whole point there is one that you don't see much of the origin. It might cover 5 minutes of that movie.
Okay.
And then the rest of it is a real life, as close to real life as you can get while still being a movie.
Like mobster thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
That's
I would
what
like
Penguin
that.
leans into is no, these are just mob people. So his name is Oz Cobb versus Oswald Cobblepot. They're doing these little things where they're like, well, Oswald Cobblepot is clearly a fake name. This doesn't no human exists by that.
Yeah.
So it's
Sorry,
all these,
Oz, if you're out there listening.
Yeah, all these tilts, and you don't see Batman acting like this frankly undefeatable creature.
Yep.
You're starting to see no, he's just trying to take down thieves in the night.
Cool.
And doing stuff like that, and it's like, well, that's his car is a car that he souped up to be able to rip around the city. And it's like,
not a tank. Or
not a tank
unbelievable
or like
motorcycle.
And that was a thing that people said during Batman Begins and things like that. They're like, well, it's a more realistic. I was like, it really wasn't.
No.
It was still cartoony.
Yeah.
You still had the Joker somehow magically filling 2 boats full of people and doing this. And it's like, well, how did he get there? How did he manage that?
Boats of convicts and boats of random tourists. Yeah, what do you do? But and I guess my point of saying that was just, it's one of these things for these franchises. They have to draw the line in the sand almost and be like, who are we going to be? Are we going to be the sellouts that we're just going to get a new actor every 10 years? We're going to redo this franchise. We're going to get a whole nother generation on this. We're going to get 17 toys on here. Walmart's going to pair with us. We're going to go to Target here, and they're going to go boom, boom, boom. Now we just made our $20 million. We've successfully recreated this superhero. Or are we going to do something with it? You know what I mean? Where, like, you establish these characters. These characters are what they are. Then you kind of do these sets of movies, but that's where, like, the superhero franchise keeps doing this plug and chug thing where it's like they establish the people, they do the origin stories, they do the team up movie, they do the villain story, they do the villain movie, and then they go, oop, all your actors are aged out. All right, plug and chug. All right, go back. All right, here's the new actors. Here's the plug and chug. And it's just like, it's one of those things where I can see why they do it, and it makes sense. And in the market, totally makes sense. But in a weird way, it's like, I don't know, just get a divergent. Harry Potter, great example. Same thing right there.
Yeah.
We're going to make an HBO show on the whole books.
Yeah.
Can you not do something else?
Well, that was the point I was trying to make earlier, right? So, like, no one's touching Lord of the Rings movies, but they're doing everything around it. They're redoing the Harry Potter movies. Now, that could be because they gutted a lot of the Harry Potter movies, especially number 5, right?
Yeah.
And like we were talking earlier, all the adults are much older than they are. Like James, like we talked about in our last episode, Tony. James and Lily were 18 years old when they had Harry, 19. And Snape and Lupin, they're all supposed to be the same age, but they're almost maybe not twice the age, but significantly older in the movies than they are in the books. But you know that it's easier to cover up adults aging than kids aging, right? You know,
for sure.
So that's so that's part of it. So we'll see how the HBO show does. I mean,
but is there hope to like do this and then make more Splinter shows? Like, that like
I don't think they can.
What I'm trying to do is like, do they put this goal in the sand?
They're afraid.
Everything that even
J.K.
Rowling based stuff has, it just falls on deaf ears because it's not. Frankly, I don't think anyone cares about the world outside of the school. I really don't. There's nothing that was done
it that way,
right? And that's the difference that you see. Now, I will say, back to what we started here with Star Wars, you actually have directions to go. Instead of going, here's this period and we know these characters and we do this, and here's those same characters. It's like, stop. I don't care. I no longer care about the Skywalkers. Wrap them up in a big ball and throw them in the wastebasket. I'm out. We've seen them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now you have either subplots that are in the same universe in that timeline that can have fully new characters that can also run for 20 years, 50 years, and still be in that same period. Now what you do end up with is when you pull them off Tarkin or you pull these characters for a cameo, it ends up being a CGI animated thing. Or you go the other directions, go way in the past. Now Acolyte was a problem. I think they dropped a ball there. We can go way in the future because it's a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It can, all right, we can go for 200 years.
Yeah.
You could have a cataclysmic event that essentially resets people to nothing that now you have...
Stone Age, baby.
You have these people trying to rebuild a civilization. We've got these good and bad. We have things through old extended universe, or not extended universe, legends that people go, okay, these things exist. Or you see different stuff that you see in Clone Wars. You see like the different planets. What's the one where they've got the giant statues and the guy that's controlling the light and the dark side, essentially?
Brother and sister, the father.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's things like that, and those exist in the books, and you're doing these things. It's like, well, you can go back to those areas and lean into it. Make movies that are focused on that stuff. And I do think people would watch it.
Dude, that segues me into the absolute perfect question. Gabe, you are king for the day. You have the magic wand of all magic wands. You are now whatever Disney CEO's name. I don't even know. You're the creative, mantle, or you're the
Iger's
masthead.
back, isn't he?
Yeah, it's Bob Iger.
Is it Bob Iger?
Yeah,
Okay.
he got put back in because
The last guy sucked.
he was
Yeah,
well
it did
because
rough.
Marvel and Disney was
Tanking.
Marvel and Star Wars were starting to tank, and they're like, we fix it.
Yeah, Disney Plus was hemorrhaging money,
Yeah,
which is wild to
still,
think about.
Still not
And-
doing great.
Oh yeah, and they're literally getting their money from the parks, which is wild because the money just lost, or the parks just lost them all money for like 3 years because COVID.
Yeah.
All right. So outside of, but no, hey, you're king for the day. You, as a Star Wars aficionado, can pick anything out of the EU. What would be your? And I'm gonna ask you this too, Mark. So prep your answer.
Yep.
But what would be your one show where you're like, I think, done properly, this would be the great
It
offshoot?
would be what I said earlier. It's the X-Wing stuff.
Oh, it's the X-Wing. Oh, okay.
my
I thought you were
gosh.
going Thrawn almost.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness, a squadron-based.
Like Wedge Antilles, would you include him? Because
So
he was
the,
kind of a side character.
so you would recast him. You have to. At this
Oh,
point.
no, yeah. I think he's actually died.
Did he?
He
No, I think his son... I thought his son played...
because
it
they
was
still
something
had him
weird.
in one of the follow-ups. I think
He was in
briefly.
9. He was in 9. We saw him. The
Oh, was
same
that?
actor.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it
I
was
thought
him.
that was his son or something. I thought he legitimately passed away. I
He
don't
rode
know.
in with Lando, right? Because Lando brought a whole fleet of the old crew.
Yep,
and
yep.
Like it showed him, right? And
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
that's
he
the
must be
thing
still
is like
living.
you
I
would
thought it was
have
his
to
son.
recast him and do all that. But
Which that's fine.
well, and we're so far past that most people would understand. Like, find someone that looks close, that can act decently, and most people go, we can fall into this.
Yep.
And those books, they have a wide swath. You touch some of the big actors, and some of them are dead now, and otherwise, so you got to do things there.
Like a holocron or something. I
But
don't know. You know what I mean?
you can go through that, and a lot of times, yeah, that's what they're doing. You're talking, they're just doing hollow. You're doing something like
yeah.
that. So it's like, well, it's a way around because they're out doing fights in space, and back to Mark liking war, or we like war movies or things like that.
Yeah.
That's essentially what these are. They are space dogfights, and that's
Yeah.
it.
There's skirmishes
you're-
that build into a total warfare.
and then you have some of those books that it's like, no, we're trying to take on a Star Destroyer with just a squadron of 10, and we're
That's
gonna
so-
make it
yeah.
work, and it's really cool. So you're discussing, and I think that has a potential for longevity that a lot of things don't, as well as separated enough but still in the world that you understand.
See, that's where I think the big
So
kicker is. You're not
instead
losing
of
people.
instead of the we're going back to Acolyte, we're going way too far forward. It is, the Empire, and you view them as bad.
Yep.
And the rebels, and here is this squadron.
Yeah.
And people die in it, and people survive, and you have to move through that way. That okay, these new people come in, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, and
But even then, you could almost even throw them a bone and go, right when you run out of source material, add Poe Dameron in.
Right.
Now you have an example of, now you're leading into
because
the
they've essentially
sequels.
already adjusted it. So
Yeah.
you have a way that you go, you know what? And I don't care if you actually follow the books; they are moot. But you can follow. We know that by the movies, Wedge Antilles and Co. they exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So follow that X-Wing squadron. What are they doing?
Yeah. Because,
And
by the way,
then-
you're the king. You choose if you want to follow the book or not,
Well, and then you do connect to Poe, and you do, okay, so now we're doing this, or that's an offshoot. They worked with them for a bit.
Yeah.
And now you do
Because he's the
that.
best star pilot. How is that possible?
Right.
Luke
How
was
did
apparently.
how did you learn
Yeah,
these
right.
things?
Really, he's like,
well,
what happened?
and that's part of the thing that you get back to old
Yeah.
legend stuff. Is like, well, we ran a moot point on a lot of stuff. Like Luke kind of became weak in the
Sequels.
Oh
Gosh, yeah, don't even get me started. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But the
nerfed.
good news. Oh,
Yeah, he
so
did.
even on top of that too, would that be in your mind a movie, a series?
series.
Okay, my man.
It's a
That's what I was
series.
looking for.
Because you could do a movie series, but I think it'd run as a series. And there's some people that would hate it because there's going to be a episode that's a 40-minute long episode of them on a space station discussing what they're doing next and how it matters and yada yada.
Yeah, but you can make that like an Ocean's 11.
But-
you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
right.
do a cool like this is our plan, and in the background like have these little cutscenes that are like showing real time of what's going
Right.
on.
It's what you
well,
got
hire me as a
into-
writer. You're a king of the day, so I appreciate
It's
it.
what got into Andor that I liked is no, you showed this is what's going on all these places. That okay, here's what's going on. You would have episodes that are nope, they're not fighting in space. They're fighting on a planet because they got stuck there and they have to now get off. And that's not a 1-episode arc. That's a multi-episode. You're
or
okay.
fighting with each other,
right? Or we
how
disagree
on
how are we going to do this?
Yeah, how often are they, every single flyboy is going to be in total agreement?
Right.
Probably never. Same thing with Andor. How often were they fundamentally arguing like we should do it this way, and someone's like, no,
you're wrong. That's I'm going to
and
die
that's
if
human.
I do that.
That's I almost can't take humanity's running out of these things. But I don't know. No, I do. I love that answer. So, Mark, what about you, man? What's your one if you had to go into it and say, I would do this in the extended universe, given that I'm king for the day?
Yeah, so it's going to be in
and
this,
hire Gabe and I as writers.
It's in this world of I don't need any Skywalkers, but it is in Jedi. I want to see more training, whether it be Dooku training Qui-Gon, Yoda training Dooku, or even Yoda getting trained. And so I looked at this up. There's not a book novel written about Yoda's training, but it's mentioned in they call it the Star Wars fact file, but I don't know if you remember.
It's like the Silmarillion. It's literally like an encyclopedic.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember when I was a kid, Tony, my parents got me like this like Spider-Man encyclopedia.
I do remember that.
But it's like that. And so his name is Incata del Gormo. And so he was made as a legend. And then, fun fact, April 25th, 2014 is when it was after Disney acquired Lucasfilm, and they said, we're rebranding Extending Universe as Legends and no longer canon because they announced we're making a sequel trilogy.
Oh, okay.
And so that's when everything
killed
before
everything.
that. And so obviously the only thing that was remaining canon was the movies and Clone Wars.
Anything on screen, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Clone Wars TV show was already ongoing, and they're like, this is canon still.
Yeah, and
We're
then they
keeping
also
this.
did Rebels, I think. Rebels was coming out at that time.
Right, so Rebels
after,
started in October, so that was the first canon, like full TV show.
Oh yeah.
But what I thought was really interesting is in that little, it's like a 2-page thing, but Yoda was not a Jedi. He had no idea what they were, and he crashed on an unnamed swamp planet. and he found Del Gormo.
Yeah.
After it became Legends, he was not mentioned until recently. There was a Mace Windu novel that came out in October of this year where they mentioned that I guess it's an in-universe legend that they name-dropped Incata del Gormo as Yoda's master. So that'd be really cool to explore that and see.
Wasn't he like a Bendu entity where he was kind of like this force-sensitive, force-dwelling creature?
So he was, I mean, he's like an ancient.
I thought that's how people
being,
explained
but
him.
he's like this giant serpent. He has 4 arms and 4 eyes.
Oh, that's
and
sick.
he had almost like a Gandalf the White Staff.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
More of a gray staff, but white school still.
So, color of Gandalf the Gray Staff, but shape of Gandalf the White Staff.
That's sick. Okay.
And so it was really
but you want a training? You want like a Rocky, almost like a Rocky.
Essentially, I want a Rocky, a Rocky
like
show.
A montage.
You want an extended episode.
Yeah. Because they touched on
like Tales of the Jedi kind of touched on
training,
Dooku,
right?
Yeah.
And it would have been really cool to also see some like when they did Tales. I was disappointed with Tales of the Empire. Maybe if they had like I don't know Sidious teaching Dooku, that would have been cool too. You know what I mean? So I'm really into the training.
Dude, I got 2 books for you, right? So I read these 2, and I wrote them down. So Master and Apprentice, that is Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan. You get inner dialogue. I really liked it, just because like there's literally like Qui-Gon's like frustration being like, dude, why is he learning this fast? You know what I mean? Like all teachers, like, like deep down there's like a teacher that was like a saint growing up, and you're like, they probably deep down, like, there's some inner monologue they're having that they're going like, dude, this guy. You know what I mean? Like, so I really kind of appreciated that. The other one was called Dooku Jedi Lost. The whole shtick is that it's it reads like a screenplay, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it's Ventress getting trained by Dooku. Mm-hmm. And she's getting like frustrated at him because she's like, dude, what is wrong with this dude? Why is he the way that he is? Like, what made him him? And she basically sneaks into his office and finds a bunch of like his hollow journals, and it's like him going over his life and playing it out in these scenes, and it's like really in depth of like who Dooku is as a person. Why is he called Darth Tyrannus? Like that was like an explanation thing. But they go over their training a little bit. So those are like the two if you wanted to a good training book in the EU. I think those would be two solid ones. But yeah, I don't know. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
dude. I think the one that
there's plenty of data that exists. Back to that.
Yeah,
between canon or legends of we know who they are. We know. You can use existing characters. You can use the ones that you don't know, and still show a cool. All right, here's a Jedi. Here's a bunch of Jedi that you don't know, and they're training each other. You can do it in one-offs of a series that it's like, nope. Here's just two. Here's two. Here's two. Here's two. You could do full series on, especially like you said, ones that you know, like Yoda. That you go, hey, you know this character.
Yeah,
you want to see them learn and. I feel like you see it a little in that the prequel trilogy that you're like, no, it's a torturous learning is kind of the pitch
it's not easy.
Get, is that it's not supposed to be this like, oh, it's hunky-dory and fun and whatever. You are put in a rigid framework, essentially. Sith or Jedi, you are put in these are the rules we follow.
Yeah.
And if you choose not to, we will shun you from our
our all you know, because you know no other connections. And we've taught you enough to be dangerous, but not enough, you know what I mean, to live in the world. And the other crazy thing, too, is that you could also have this whole arc of, like, talk about the Jedi Consulars and the Jedi Guardians. Those are, like, I think that's what they called, Consulars and Guardians. Yeah. Consulars are the green, Jedi or Guardians are the blue.
Yeah.
Whole point is one is knowledge-based, the other one is protectors of the Force.
Yeah.
And then you can also go into someone has to be picked as a Sentinel.
Yeah.
Or even gray Jedis, and that'd be a really cool avenue to like go deeper into what made these Jedis and how they get trained. So even if you want to, you can go to nobodies who are Sentinels, and then now we learn more Sentinels. You know what I mean? And Jedi Consulars, they have different.
It helps
routes.
you then build the other potential, which I think is what the goal was a little with Acolyte, but they lean too much on here's the past of these characters, and we're trying to make them these huge pivotal beings, and it's like I don't think anyone cared about them, and as such, since no one cared about them yet, start at base level. Just be like, we're training them.
Yep.
We're training them. That's
They're
all
Padawans. What does a Padawan life look like?
Yeah. They were picked up as a kid, and you know what? In the second season, you can show that like no, they were picked up as a kid, but boy, it was not a good situation when they got picked up. That lets you build okay, well, were the Jedi good in doing that, or were they
questionable?
Were they bad people?
Fundamentally, they are taking kids away from their family connections
and
with
telling them
that
you need to void those connections.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And it's wild too, and the family has to live with that too, because that's like the Dooku book goes into it too, because he like feels robbed. He's like, I was never given a choice. You know what I mean? Like we're Count of Sereno. Like I have this whole other life I could have lived, and a sister who loves me, and I love my sister. Not in a Luke and Leia way, but you know what I mean, in a real sisterly, brotherly love way, and it's really interesting, and that's why it kind of like turns him, and that's also what makes Count Dooku such a more convincing character. He's not just a CIS, sympathizer. He's not really sympathizing with the CIS. The CIS is just a vehicle in which he can go back on his old life going, no, I'm the Count of Sorrento.
Yeah.
I'm going to carry out my family's legacy. Mm-hmm. This is what I was born to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I found that to be interesting. But I don't know. And then the fans are screaming for a Revan with
Keanu Reeves.
Thank you. That was another one. I don't know what I would do. Honestly, I think I'd be more in line with something deep like Andor. I love the idea of the training. I really think I would just completely give up my
option. I think that allows you to go deep, because it allows you to see. You can start before they're even in training, or you start that they're in training. But instead of keep doing what they've been doing, which is a lot of flashbacks, go to the idea of like, no, here, this is a child on a planet.
Yep. Yeah.
And they are living their life on that planet. Similar, go back to Episode 4. Luke's living on a planet. Somebody comes in and says, I got some stuff I can teach you.
Yeah.
Do that. But it starts to show then, well, now that you can see the parents discuss, like, well, is this the right move? Like, we don't know this guy.
Do we even have a say in this?
Yeah. He says he's going to help our kid, but...
And back to your, like, if it's an Outer Rim planet...
Yeah.
Their Jedis are not...
Yeah, we're like, well, these...
Yeah, who is this guy?
Yeah, like, what...
Yeah.
What are you going to do for my kid?
Yeah.
So if he gets 5 more Jedi underneath him,
Yeah.
These are building up the
Yeah,
pyramid.
because it was Coruscant. Parents were like, "Yes, take my kid."
Yeah,
Right,
no, because it was
they're
well
like,
known.
100%, yeah. Oh, wow. And I'm sure like that would be the pitch. Like, no, every family on Coruscant, you send your kids to the testing, and it's like, no. And it's like 1%, and they're all like, oh, wow, it's fabulous. That's the best kid.
Yeah.
But yet the Jedi are still flying around trying to find out, like, well, are you a Jedi? You hear about something happening on this planet, or they're trying to find where they are, and yeah, you get the weird, fun, like, no, I can feel one. There's one on this planet. We need to find it, because otherwise they can do bad things. They can do
1000%,
nightmarish things to the world that they're living in.
It's a power that kind of has to be controlled and kind of under lock and key. I mean, fundamentally. And I think the other thing too is that I don't know if I would go for a series. I think I would want to like go back and just touch the EU things that they try to do in other series and just turn it up to 11 a little bit, being like, stop, no, let me think of an example. I don't know. There's so many off the top of my head. It's hard to choose actually.
I thought you would just choose a Plagueis, Tony. You're a Plagueis.
Oh,
boy.
no. First off, don't get me wrong. I would do Tales of the Sith, 1000%. I would literally go from top to bottom. I would fundamentally do my philosophies of the Sith. I would literally call it philosophies of the Sith. I would go back in the episode. Hey, give it another listen. It'd be perfect. You know what I mean? But I'd go back to that one, and I'd do that as a series.
Yeah.
Because I think the Sith needs some more time.
Yeah.
And more cook time for people to understand what's going on, of what exactly these Sith are doing. If I had to choose a series, and it would be a series, 1000%. I would do exactly that. Whether it be a season in like the Old Republic, and then do one in like the prequels, and then one in the normal universe. I don't know what I would do it or how I'd format it, but I think the other thing too is they just need a little bit of help here and there when they touch these things, because it's like there's so many avenues that they can take. And it's like they kind of touch on these EU things, and then they kind of back off. Like, Leia's trained as a Jedi. It's a flashback for like 3 seconds. And then, okay, now she's in space, and then she has the ability to force pull herself into a ship while being passed out. It's like,
well, but a lot of that, again, gets back to old legend stuff, which is like, no, they do dig more into the idea that, like, no, she has force powers. She is not. She is force sensitive, highly force sensitive. Yeah. But doesn't use them in that way.
Right. Yeah. Which she shows in the originals that she's force sensitive. Right.
And she has a lightsaber that they bury in Tatooine that Rey does. So, but my point is that, like, don't half butt that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Full butt that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like no. It's not a question. No, she is force. No, she is doing this. It's not like,
Yeah.
Also, I'd love to see the First Order's training with those stormtroopers. Or,
Phasma?
Yeah. I'd love to see that. Well, I really think they did Finn dirty. That'd be so cool to see that.
I think we're kind of getting to this thing which I think is part of my issue currently with the way Disney's going. Every single one of us just said, what we'd do is a series. And I've balked at the series that are getting created, but the series are just trying to say this is a known character.
Yeah.
Save for Andor, which he was known, but like barely.
But in Rogue One, he was a side character.
He was a side character in a movie.
Yep.
That is 100% the direction I'd go. If you're going to pick a known character, which I think might be why they keep introducing, well, this guy was a side Jedi in a movie.
Yep.
If you see him again, are you going to be like, wait a minute, show me more?
Yeah.
You're saying he existed at both these times?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of that, give me some full new stuff that gives these touches of characters,
Exactly.
And then what you can do is you throw in movies that intersect two of them, or you see these things, because the movies either way are about fundamental pivotal points in this universe.
Yep.
That's what they're about.
Yep.
And the Skywalker family, yes, was very pivotal for let's call it a 60-year period, 60, 70-year period that they were involved with taking out the bad guys for almost a full century. And
which is wild. It's probably even smaller.
Wild. Yeah.
It's probably even smaller,
right.
Actually. Yeah, but yeah, I agree.
So, but save for really the prequel trilogy, and you still see it in that, but the rest of those are really a touch point of big thing happening. We have to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And we are at the last minute. We have to do it.
Yep.
Whereas series allow you to build there's bad things happening. It's not the end of the world. it's stuff we're worried about, but we're trying to fight against it.
Yep.
Or if you go back to times of Sith being in power or times of Jedi being in power, that it's, we're not worried about anything, but now you get to learn about our world.
Yeah, what made them the way that they are.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a deep exposition on what makes a Jedi a Jedi.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think that's a big thing. And I feel like that's the hard thing is like you have to know when to fold them, fundamentally. We're done with the Skywalker, let's fold it up. We're done with Avengers, let's fold it up.
Right.
Like, we can have these small touch points, but, dude, take the side character or take some random character we have no idea on that you feel like you have enough content around it to then introduce this character. But while you're introducing it, you introduce what made that character
why-
do the
why-
training or
yeah.
do the like can you imagine if they went, okay, we're gonna make a new Marvel character or somewhere in the comics or some Marvel character
You
deep
pick
down.
the
You pick
odd
somebody.
ones and-
Yeah. And then you go, okay, while they're training up, we can show more. What the heck is the SHIELD thing? Like, why is SHIELD the way that they are?
Yeah.
And then you can show that this kid who's like, whatever, discovering his powers, I'm just throwing that out there, discovering his powers, and then SHIELD comes in, and then all of a sudden now you kind of have this, okay, now SHIELD's kind of getting explained and how they're interacting. It's like stuff like
that
that
is
where...
partially what they did with the SHIELD show.
I might be horrible. I don't know Marvel. So
I
that's
did
why.
not.
Yeah. They
watch
might have
much
already
of it,
done
but
that.
But I know that's what they were trying to do with it.
Yeah.
We're pulling in. They weren't allowed to call them mutants, superhumans, I think, or whatever they called them, powered individuals, whatever. That they were starting to say like, no, they were grabbing people to say like, hey. But then at the same time, we weren't. I don't think the rest of Marvel was leaning enough into what SHIELD is in their primary stuff.
Yeah.
Which the whole pitch is that like, no, SHIELD is arguably good guys. They just also many times butt heads with the superheroes because the superheroes will say like, well, I can do this myself. Like,
I want autonomy.
This is how I want to do it. And
Yeah.
SHIELD will be like, okay, we get that that's what you want, but this is bigger than any of that.
Yeah,
and
we're
we
part of
have
this
to
governing
all
body.
work together right now. And once we're done with that, you can go back to doing your thing.
Yeah, it's like the law of checks and balances. Really, I'm part of the governing body of
Right.
the world. They don't like you having total autonomy. You probably shouldn't have total autonomy. Let's, you know what I mean? Let's balance
and
it.
that's the whole Civil War thing for Marvel, but I think
that was a big deal.
I think they kind of flubbed on it because
They
we didn't lean hard enough. And again, that gets back to probably could have helped to have a series that was going into. It didn't even have to be a huge hero. You could get a dabble of a huge hero for like an episode that does something that could be viewed as deeply catastrophic, but you could see small heroes doing things that somebody records on their phone. They're like, this hero just killed somebody.
Yeah.
And the hero's like, the guy shot me 15 times. Like, and he killed 3 other people. You ignored that.
Yeah.
You're right. Maybe I shouldn't have killed him, but
Yeah,
he's
he
dead
did
now.
the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he did it.
It's like the Batman rule.
It was my
yeah.
only right. Which I mean, we're slowly. That's a pitch that's starting to happen in DC. Is like, well, can you get rid of some of that stuff?
Yeah.
Do
yeah.
you?
What do you do? Yeah.
Do you start saying like, well, Batman doesn't just beat the snot out of people? Like,
Yeah. Well,
at
do you ever
some point,
see
you hit someone so hard. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever? Well, they actually brought a doctor on. I can't remember. It's one of the famous influencer doctors. I can't remember his name. He's a really funny guy. But he literally, he's like, I'm evaluating all these fight sequences, and the more like the thing.
Would
and he's
someone
like,
survive?
yeah, and he's like, not even if they survive. Like, he's eating the rest of his meals for the rest of his life out of a straw.
Yeah.
Like.
You might have done him worse than just.
Yeah, it probably
cut
should
it
have just,
off.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, oh my God, so, yeah, there's a lot to it, and it definitely gets some interesting playbacks in there, but, yeah, I just think this is such a unique thing, and I love the extended universe, because they go so much deeper.
Yeah, there's so much there, right?
I think having a series based on it, where you introduce a pivotal character, but then like exactly what you're saying, you're touching some fundamental force in the world, and learning more about that fundamental force, you're not going to lose anybody.
Well, and all the ones we mentioned are things that do exist in Legends or otherwise, that you can take the stuff that Disney can take or whoever writes goes, okay, these 5 things. gonna put these in my show, and these 20, I'm ignoring those. Those went crazy, and I don't know what you were thinking.
Darth Jar Jar doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I like these things, and they're gonna be good for us. We can. Yeah, you can ignore Darth Jar Jar. You can ignore Heir to the Empire, where we create clones of
Shadow Luke
to fight himself. We can get rid of stuff like that. Of like, I'm gonna make an army of Lukes that are gonna take over the world. That's crazy.
Yep.
Now, if you want to lean into like a what if, like Marvel does, that could be a fun thing that you release in an animated thing.
That'd be a fun series.
Here exists some legends that were so crazy, but we'll release them in a 1 hour long show that you're gonna enjoy watching because you'll be like, this. No, that's not real.
There's no
like,
way.
It was a book, and it was not just a book; it was a full series of. Trilogy, I think.
I do love that idea. All of the runoff just goes into what ifs.
Yeah,
I like that.
And it was the point that's what What If was as comics for years.
Oh, big time.
It was just the like, well, this is a fun concept for a story, but it can't be canon to the worlds we've created because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And the weird thing on the What If for Marvel for the cinematic universe, because it is canon technically, is they're just different multiverses, and I think it is a bad thing for What If, because What If should be more far-fetched. There were What Ifs that were including DC and Marvel. There were What Ifs that were including old versions and new versions and whatever, and now it's like, well, that we threw zombies in. Well, zombies was its own series.
Yeah, they had
which
like
we get next year.
Oh, really?
Good. Oh, okay.
Yep, we are releasing Marvel Zombies, I think October 2025, and I am so excited because
October's good. That's a good idea.
It's a good time to release it. It's a good series for Marvel, and I believe it's going to be animated and I believe rated M, TVMA.
Oh,
because
sick.
it's the point. It's like, no, this is not a kid thing. These are superheroes and whatever and bad guys that have to start working together, and they kill each other.
Yeah,
they have to. There's zombies. You can't stop them trying to eat you beyond. I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, they also did a little bit of that with Doctor Strange and that Multiverse of Madness. That was like they did. I don't know if that was just an Easter egg for that. I don't know, but they touched on zombie Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and that's. I think they're starting to lean into the weird stuff on Marvel. The weirdest thing was, because it goes back to what you said, is they used a smaller set of characters, which is Guardians of the Galaxy. They never were. They're not Avengers. They're used like sampled sometimes in that.
Yeah.
But instead they pulled them in super heavily. And it's like, why didn't you just let them be these spacefaring weirdos, which is what they are. Yeah. They're anti-heroes that they're like, no, we're here to help the good guys because they're right about this. We shouldn't be letting this bad guy kill a bunch of people.
Yeah. It's the classic, someone went in my backyard. Even though they're not fundamentally hurting me, I can also see that they're encroaching on me. I should probably go help. And talk about a great example of Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy. They were their own individual entity, and they killed it. Look at the first movie.
They were super fun, and I think they
hundreds of millions.
They have loads of those they can use, and I think we're instead of focusing on the new stuff, they keep focusing on this, like, well, we're building the universe. It's like, your universe kind of died. You built so fast, and then you lost your heavy hitters. You got to give up on that. No one's really caring anymore, because you're left with Iron Patriot, who is fine, but I don't know many people that actually care to watch Iron Patriot.
Right.
You're left with Loki, but Loki's essentially done now. He's God Loki.
Yeah.
Who's, again, a fun character, and a lot of people liked Loki, but now you wore him out through 2 seasons.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you got to move on. Thor's worn out. Who do you have left of what was there? Hulk?
They could do a Ronin spin with Hawkeye during his Yakuza phase. That'd be the only thing that I could see. But then I thought they did that when he trained the other girl in that series.
Yeah,
they did a little.
So they've got a couple more. I mean, they've got the Red Hulk movie coming out, and then they have World War Hulk. Which is I guess I saw a rumor that they're thinking about, because it's
that builds towards like Secret Wars, I believe. Technically, World War Hulk does.
But I saw a rumor today actually that they might have, because there's a comic where there's like an old Hulk kind of thing, and they're thinking about bringing Edward Norton back for old Hulk.
Yeah.
That'd
Well,
be kinda
because the pitch essentially gets
Arwen.
into
Yeah.
World War Hulk leads into like Secret World War, which leads into Battle World, and everyone's trying to find out what the MCU is trying to do. Battle World is a known, like, really cool thing that has buttloads of variants that you can use, and you've got these heroes leading different quadrants of this world, and then they all have to, heroes and villains, and they all kind of end up finding out they have to band together and be like, hey, Doom, like, we're done just killing each other. We have to stop, and we have to go back to where we're from and live our lives and do that. And
isn't that they're trying to do that with the whole skull thing? You know what I mean? Like, wasn't that like the invasion idea was basically this
secret invasion?
Yeah, there's fundamentals. Am I on the wrong?
No,
you're right.
Isn't
Exactly
that the
right.
whole thing where, like, because in order to do the war thing, you have to have something that's so fundamentally that will wreck everyone's life, that these two opposing forces are so entwined that they're like, all right, we got to band together. I thought that's what the idea was, secret invasion, right?
It was that the scrolls.
That's what's in the comic books, by the way. The comic book very much.
They slowly were taken over, and so like there was a big name character that, because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it. There's a big name character that it revealed at the end that has been a scroll for a significant amount of time.
Yeah,
and we're like, oh.
That changes things.
Yeah.
Why did he help the good guys do this? Was there something else? Yeah, okay. So that's what they're trying to play into.
Right.
That'd be cool though. I'd like to see that, the Secret Wars. That'd be awesome. So
well, and they're still saying that's what they're gonna do, and some of it's still gonna be adjusted, but I think it'll be. There's a lot. Marvel has to speed up though too, because they keep. Yeah. They keep fumbling the ball and then going, well, wait a minute, how do we fix it? And I was like, I don't know what else to watch of theirs anymore. You had Agatha, back to what I said earlier. I've watched
isn't that the three witches? It's like all the
witches.
Yeah. Audrey Plaza's in that, I think, right?
Yeah. She
Isn't
plays
that the whole
Lady
shtick?
Death.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
dude,
spoiler.
that's a big. Yeah, I was about to say.
She's big on any like spooky witch stuff. People are like, Aubrey Plaza, you know?
She likes to be the kind of bad guy, but not objectively always evil.
Yeah. But honestly, they could do a lot with Deadpool with Lady Death. That's like the whole shtick. Mm-hmm. I think that'd be pretty cool. And
well, and that's a lot of. I think they're starting to find out too. It's like, well, Ryan Reynolds has done so much and now has made Deadpool this pivotal thing. Deadpool and Wolverine did really well for them. They're like, well, okay. The rumor mill now too is that he will be part of the new. Mutants when we start on the X-Men, which is a good thing because he should exist, even if it's bit parts in most of the movies. Because
I think that's what he probably should be.
That's where he typically fits in with them. Is he runs across them at some point? He comes by because he's like, I'm being stupid, and they'll be like, hey, we actually have a big deal. And he's like, no, that's why I'm here. Because I just need to make sure you guys do the right thing. Because if you don't, I have to step in. Because I mean, that's one of the big things about Deadpool is he's this aggressively overpowered character that exists typically to keep things in line.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like him.
Yeah, and it's funny because in Deadpool 2 they make that joke because they go to the mansion and he goes, this big house and there's only just the two of you in here. And then
we couldn't shell out with Fox.
And they quickly shut the door and there's like a group in there, you know.
Well, I think the other thing too is, and that's just like he breaks the fourth wall.
Oh,
and he's making a joke of that. And I think that's why I like Deadpool so much. Is like when you look at it, Deadpool and Wolverine, fundamentally, that's like not that great of a story. Like the villain. Well, I mean,
it was fun. It was all,
but that's my point. He fundamentally brings a fun movie in. Like even when you look back at it, you're like, wait, so who's the main villain? Was it the one guy trying to
the TVA guy,
or was it Professor Xavier's daughter,
Cassandra Nova,
whatever it was,
younger sister.
Is it sister? Okay, I can't remember. But you kind of see what I'm saying. Like fundamentally, like how these characters are.
They're twins. They're twins.
Okay, but you kind of see
a universe.
Yeah. But you kind of see what I'm saying. Like you don't really know where the story's going. But he's such a fun character that you can kind of wipe all that away because I'm not here to go into this crazy in-depth story. I'm here to laugh and have some really good, like, slapstick comedy.
Yeah.
And I think that's like he's a perfect character for. So if they can kind of keep up with that, that'd be fantastic. And I think they could really do a good job with it. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot with those characters. But yeah, Marvel's a great example with all its EU because there's so much content that they can.
But that's
go
a whole
on.
other episode, Tony. We can
I know.
we can
we got
spend
distracted
another,
again.
spend another 2 hours there.
Yeah, I think we're so solid on this EU thing. Do you guys have any other comments before we close? I feel like we hit a really good hit. Disney will still take job hirings. It's not like we hate you. You know what I mean? We'll take hiring as writers, whatever you think. But no, we don't hate you. We just think that there's some things that we could do that would help out getting the extended universe a little bit more love and probably hopefully help those diehard fans to really appreciate those shows that if you had to put out. But
Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, please call us.
Yep, exactly. And I think overall, it sounds like we're pretty excited for Andor Season 2. I think there's some other things in the pipeline that'd be fun. I think there's books.
I am almost always excited for all the stuff that comes out, and then I get disappointed halfway through.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that changes, and we'll see.
And then our homework is to read Thrawn and then also X-Wing, play a game of that.
Plagueis.
So hopefully we'll hit that. Then your homework is Plagueis,
Yeah.
so we got that. All right, now we got our assignments out. Anybody else have anything else?
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming,
dude,
Gabe.
thanks for we literally just went 2 hours talking over this stuff. So no, we gotta thank you, Gabe. We totally appreciate your time, and it's awesome getting into this
Well, that's
stuff.
the thing. When it's just me and Tony, we kind of run out of things to say at an hour. But with a third person, it just
it's so easy to popcorn.
when we had Sean, when we had Ben, I mean, it's easy to get lost in the sauce, as they say.
Get off track.
Get off. Well,
Kind of bounce around a little bit.
Yeah. No, we're just a railroad with a lot of tracks, and I think this time around, this episode is so much fun because we just went periodically through each track. It was a lot of fun. I like talking about that. We're going deep in lore, but also what would you do and what's different.
So with that, thanks guys for listening. As always, please reach out to us with questions, mix-ups, what-if ideas, deep dive ideas. Tony, we haven't done a mix-up in a while. Maybe we should do that in the next episode or something.
We probably should.
Yeah.
26 year-long episode. We
I
probably
know,
need to do
right?
something like that. No, absolutely. And, of course, if you're asking, hey, where should I reach out? We're on Instagram or X, Twitter, at the Live Laugh Lore Pod. But you can also email us at the Live Laugh Lore Pod at gmail.com. That's Live Laugh Lore Pod, POD, at gmail.com.
Thanks, guys.